wrestling fans, from body slams to high-flying plans. Join the chat, hear the scoops, jump in quick, don't be a stoop. We're throwing down in every match, with tales and fights that you can't catch. The Marks Podcast is the place to be, for every wrestling mystery.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tony Chimmel, the GOAT of ring announcers, and you're listening to the Marks Podcast on YouTube.
Welcome, everybody. It is Sunday, so you know what that means. It is time for the Marks Podcast. We are going to be talking about WrestleMania today. We're supposed to be talking about other things too, but
we're waiting. Well, you know, and while we're waiting to talk about other things, let's talk about, as you can see behind me is AT&T Stadium. I was in Dallas last week, as you guys know, and it was a pleasure meeting Dan Trips, you know, and I will say this man is almost twice my size and eats half what I do. I mean, I don't know if I'm just
finished my baked potato. That's the only thing that happened. I ate cornbread, I ate everything else, and you're giving me shit because I didn't finish my baked potato.
To be fair, the cornbread was and a shout out to Cattleman's in Fort Worth Stockyard because well,
I mean, you know, somebody couldn't make it, so snow and shit. Bad weather.
Well,
his vagina was hurting.
It's cold up here too in the Northeast. But as far as that goes, another reason why the AT&T Stadium is behind us is because I went around Dallas and reminisced some old memories of buildings and some of the lots and stuff like that I went by. Really, you know, this sign behind me says the Dallas.
Why would you put that one up? That is not indicative of what was there. The greatness that was once there.
The greatness that was once there that we're going to refer to right now is the Sportatorium.
Yeah, responsible for people like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kerry Von Erich, the Von Erich family as a whole.
The Freebirds.
Yeah.
So if you grew up in the early 80s, mid 80s, you knew WCCW was on every week as much as WWF back then. And the talent pool that came out of WCCW.
We talk about it all the time, the what ifs. Like people used to talk about how NWA, Croc Promotions had the tragedy that was Magnum TA. But they never talk about Gino Hernandez, who could have fucking set the world on fire.
Would you know, when we talk about that all the times, would MJF be the modern Gino Hernandez?
I would absolutely say that.
Because the combed out black, you know, Tony Montana in a wrestling ring. That's what he came across as.
But he could back it up in the ring.
Oh yeah. It was.
So characters like Magnum TA would have to be altered to work now. Gino Hernandez could work today.
Yeah. And, well, you do have a Magnum TA today, a cheap ripoff in the Cowboy there in AEW.
The fucking Gen X Cowboy. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Hangman's work as recently, but he's not fucking Magnum TA. There's not even by a long shot.
No, I'm just saying in comparison to character, the look and stuff like that. Even though Magnum TA had the
Magnum TA was bigger. Magnum TA had a presence.
Yes.
Say what you want about Hangman Adam Page. He can wrestle, kind of, but he's not fucking Magnum TA. He will never be Magnum TA.
Yep.
And you said something a couple of weeks ago that really stuck with me. I've been watching this YouTube channel called WCW, which is a shoot off of the WWE Vault channel. And you're wrong. Sting could have carried an entire company. I watched him in a 6-man tag in the Thunder Cage with Brian Pillman and the Natural Dustin Rhodes against Paul Orndorff, Stunning Steve, and Ravishing Rick Rude. And there were so many kids and women who were just melting as soon as they heard that riff of his music.
What I meant by that is he didn't have enough quality heels to keep him up there to where those guys could put
And
him
I
over.
disagree, because if you go back and look, he had the 4 Horsemen. He had the Russians, Ivan Koloff and Nikita Koloff, Crusher Khrushchev. He had Ravishing Rick Rude. He had Stunning Steve Austin. He had Paul Orndorff at the time. Vader. He had plenty of heels.
Well, also did WCW book him the right way too?
And he also, when he won the world title, one of his first heels was Cactus Jack.
Like I just said, though, was all those heels booked the right way against him, though?
Here's the deal. Like, okay, so at that time they had the Superstation. TBS was a big deal. It was prime time, 6:05 on
Saturday
TBS.
nights.
Saturday night, 6:05. Everybody was watching wrestling back then. Okay, Sting was a big deal with that flat top gimmick with the Surfer Sting. They loved him. Women were kids. You would see at that point in time, where in the early 80s, you would see guys dressed up in suits trying to imitate the 4 Horsemen. In this early 90s, late 80s period, you saw guys with flat tops and blonde hair with Sting face paint. You saw women with Sting shirts that are like, fucking boobs hanging out of them, covered in face paint as well. He was a marketable guy. The only difference is, at that point in time, we're talking about late 80s, 90s, Vince had started to come in, and he started his global takeover.
Yes.
When Sting come over to WWE, he would have ruled everything. Hogan would have been nothing.
Like I said,
Ultimate Warrior wouldn't have been shit.
the wrong, and would you agree that the wrong guy, Vince took the wrong?
Absolutely. He took he took the jacked up fucking monster and thought that he was going to be fucking worth the bang for his buck, and all he did was become more trouble than he was worth. And I'm like, God rest his soul, man. God rest the Warrior's soul. He went out the way he came in. Who could have predicted he would die the next night after saying that crazy promo after his Hall of Fame speech? What I'm saying is, if Sting would have gone to WWE or WWF at the time, I think we would have had an entrance into the new generation quicker. I think guys like Bret Hart, I think guys like Shawn Michaels would have got their push a lot quicker, because Sting wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but he had a gigantic personality and people loved him.
Here's my thing. Look at no, don't get me wrong. I think Sting versus people like Macho Man.
Think of all the stupid gimmick characters Sting could have gone against. Look, one of my favorites, and I always talk shit about it, Repo Man. You had Duke the Dumpster Jumps. You had Doink the Clown. All the different.
Warrior won the title at SummerSlam '88. Okay, so that means Sting would have had to been there before then.
Sting won Warrior won at WrestleMania.
He won the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam '88. Beat the Honky Tonk Man. 31 seconds. Anywho, what I'm saying is, what if you flip that and you had Sting beat the Honky Tonk Man?
Yeah, but Sting would have squashed him, I don't think. Sting's body.
That's what I'm saying. He doesn't squash him. And then that title, he goes and wrestles guys like Savage. Because remember, at that point, Savage was a very big heel.
Mm-hmm. Macho King.
Okay. No, because remember, him and Hogan started their thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, they were about to start their thing at that point. But the quality of the opponents he would have gone against, Sting versus Mr. Perfect, Sting versus DiBiase. You look at some of them guys back then, it's like Sting versus Piper. The quality of the people that he was going to go against and the matches he could have gone against, he didn't need to talk. Let those heels talk.
Say what you want about Sting. I would say that his in-ring work was similar to it's not. So Cena can't wrestle for shit. I'm sorry. It's just my opinion. but he was better than Cena, and he had the fans in the palm of his. He had the kids and women in the palm of his hand, like Cena.
Sting was WCW's smaller version of Hogan, but he just never got to that top ladder like Hogan.
The only reason he didn't get there is because he didn't have the notoriety and he didn't have the TV to do that.
And that's what I mean by he never got to that point. If he
But
got
could he have run an entire? Yeah, could he have been the big player? Absolutely. And when you said he couldn't, I really thought about that because when I was a kid, I wanted a flat top. I wanted the blonde hair. I wanted face paint like Sting. And I thought, was I wrong back then? No. Was I wrong to get upset and emotional when Rick Rude fucking broke his ribs and he came back and lost the U.S. title? No. Sting was a big deal. And for anybody to deny that, it goes back to when he finally came to WWE and was squashed by Triple H. Wrong move, wrong call. The only thing I'll give AEW credit for is they gave that man a proper send-off. To have his sons come up there, one dressed as Surfer Sting, one dressed as the MDOBO Wolfpack Sting, and for Sting to come out there with his sons and finish the job the proper way, I can never fucking be truly hateful towards that.
And going by this piece behind me, my question is this. In the realm of wrestling lore, what was more important to the business? The old Sportatorium or the ECW arena?
The Sportatorium, hands down.
And history-wise, the Sportatorium. Changing the business-wise, ECW.
Yes, dear.
You have to have both. You can't have one without the other.
Well, what I'll say is that ECW changed the way that we viewed wrestling, and the influences from ECW definitely influenced what they call the Attitude Era.
I mean, the talent from WCCW fed the emerging WWF.
Absolutely. But what I'll say is that before WWE was ever even considering going mainstream, you had people in Japan talking about the Von Erichs.
Yes. And the other day, I actually got to watch some of the Iron Claw. Okay. I haven't watched the whole thing.
I haven't watched it. Part of me doesn't want to watch it because I know the story. I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I know what the tragedy was. We were brought up on it. I've said it before. There are pictures somewhere in a photo album of me on the shoulder of Kevin Von Erich while gentleman Chris Adams is pointing at me on his shoulder as a 4-year-old little boy. The Von Erichs will always be Texas. The tragedy was something that bled through this area even when we were kids. We knew about everything. It's a tragedy that I think everybody should learn from, that sometimes you can get too big for your own good and that sometimes you need to take a step back.
Would the Von Erichs be to Dallas what the Hart family is to Calgary?
100%.
And so I saw that Kevin moved to Hawaii. And I'm like, is it because? And my first immediate thought is this probably too much hurt?
No, I think he's had time. Look, he's handling gracefully. His sons are wrestling. His sons are the Von. I think they're the Von Erichs now in AEW and Ring of Honor. They're tagging with Dustin Rhodes.
Okay.
But I think, look, of all the brothers, he's the last one. If he wants to go to fucking Hawaii.
He did not age well.
Would you have? With everybody you love dying around you? He said it himself. He looked at the turnbuckles because they used to leave messages for each other on the turnbuckles. And he would go there and he would see the messages and it broke his heart every time he wrestled. And look, I'm not trying to be hateful towards Fritz Von Erich for everything he did. He was a great wrestler in his day. He put too much on those boys. I will say that I think that Kerry, and this is going to be a hard take on it, I would say that Kerry Von Erich would not have pushed himself so hard if it wasn't for his dad, which ultimately led to his downfall.
Well, I was watching that movie, it seemed like he was harder than all the boys.
Absolutely.
Stu was harder than his boys too.
And look how that turned out.
As I say, one family took took it the right way.
No, so some of those boys didn't start to wrestle anymore after Stampede. They couldn't take it. They stopped. But you had two sons that continued, in Owen and Brett. Sadly, Owen passed away in a tragic incident, and you have a bitter ass Bret Hart who blames everybody for his issues. Granted, some of those reasons that he's upset are justified, but he's a very bitter man. And you're not gonna, in my heart of hearts, I'm gonna tell you, I think part of that is because of the way he was raised.
And one of the things with Brett that I will say this is, he saw everything and said nothing.
Yeah.
And, and he was around a lot of stuff. He come out and said it later on. He was around a lot of stuff, saw a lot of stuff, but said nothing about it. If you see, if you see stuff, Brett, being the guy you are, what's more important, your job or your morals in life?
You know something about that.
In life, I'll always say, what's more important in life? Job, your morals, your ethics,
your integrity. I'll say this. I'm not someone who's going to take a paycheck at the cost of my own soul, because I can have all the money in the world, but if I can't look at the man in the mirror, what worth am I at? What worth do I have?
I said that. Hey, we both said it. Tell her to Trips. You have to resend that. I just got a message. Hold on a second here. Let me see if I can forward it. If I'm good enough.
Not that one. Don't send that one. There's another one she's going to send.
Okay, all right.
No, I sent him one in his email, the one he can send.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Why, she is the best in the business.
Aw.
She's the best in your business.
She's best in all the business. You find a better producer. I mean, you can go to the Panhandle, see how that works out.
Oh, well, yeah. Hey, listen, it's not that I can't figure out the phone. I'm still new at this email stuff.
Fucking boomer. You're the only person that makes me not feel like a fucking boomer.
But,
damn right, Leland. Damn fucking right.
And the funny part is that here we are 1 week away from WrestleMania, and there was nothing this week that I saw that makes me want to talk about it. There's obviously nothing that makes me want to talk about Dynamite.
Well, I'm excited for what Jey Uso did. Jey Uso probably cut is my favorite promo of this whole thing. When he came out and he told Gunther, I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm going to get you for my brother, for my family, for me. And I'm going to walk out of WrestleMania, the new World Heavyweight title. And the way Gunther sold it was, it's like, oh, wow, he actually, all this stuff has been to play mind games with Jay and fuck with him and give him that fear like he can't win. And that's what Gunther does best. Gunther is really good at psychological warfare and whooping your ass. And Jey Uso, I know Cubics and Jacob. Jacob isn't here today because he's feeling ill. We love you, Jacob, and we hope you get better soon. But this is one of those times I would have felt like Jacob would have liked this particular promo. I think Jacob would have been like, okay, I can get behind this one.
The 7 weeks between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania, I think has done harm to WrestleMania.
I would agree with that because I could give two fucks about John Cena versus fucking Cody. I did like the nostalgia of seeing all those belts on SmackDown. He did name drop Brock. He did name drop some other people, but I mean, I could care less. Look, all I want, honestly, is for Cody to drop the belt and let's do something else because I'm tired of the story. All right, I can only read a pop-up book so many times.
Question: was the Hook concussion thing this week, or was that old footage?
I heard about that. Because I know Jacob posted it.
No, I posted it because I was like, what the hell? That he got a concussion and threw up in the ring
That had to be new.
twice.
Wait,
And
hold on.
hang on a second.
If you did it twice, that means the doctors didn't step in.
Correct. So hang on a second.
If that's true, it happened the other night, the WWE would have been blasted for it. Well, then again, nobody watches the AEW, so that's why nobody blasted it.
Let me see.
All I know is that, again, AEW, they're letting people stab each other at this point.
Yeah, they said, imagine watching a guy puke twice in the ring and still picking him up to do a front suplex on an upside down folded chair anyway. And you can see
WWE, people would have been calling for them to be off the air.
Yep. Well, no one's watching AEW.
That's what I said. Because nobody's seeing it. Who cares about it?
That's what I'm saying. That's disgusting because it's my biggest complaint about AEW. You have to set a motherfucker on fire to get a pop.
Would you agree? And I hope it never happens. They're almost setting themselves up for somebody to die in their damn ring.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And is that what it's going to take for Tony Khan? Or is Tony Khan going to be looking at that like, oh, that's great for business. I got all these eyes on my product now.
Tony Khan, I'll say it plainly, is a fucking moron.
He cares more about clicks.
Leland, you're right. WWE has done an Inferno match with proper defense and setup. If you look at the plaster on Kane's arm, the first time he got burned in that match, it was all plasty and set up. It was.
And how many fire extinguishers are at ringside?
Right there on the spot.
So, they took everything in their power.
They literally had fucking Jack Perry get set on fire for a pop.
Yep.
They had nails sticking out of the back of John Moxley where he had to pull them out.
And
at some point,
Now, don't get me wrong. I think when Kane first started, the whole gimmick was that he was on fire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he might have got put on fire a couple times.
He lost 2 Inferno matches. One, we got burned in the hand, and I think the other one, I remember what else. But they were immediately. He ran down the aisleway, and they got him.
They had the immediate attention he needed. Number one, and I guarantee you, the suit that he was wearing at that night, he was probably pissed off because it was probably heavy as hell, made of that fire retardant.
Tony Khan is a fucking idiot. What is Tony Khan? They're going to do more hardcore stuff because fans love it.
Hey, yeah.
I'm sounding like a fucking boomer back in the ECW days.
Yeah. No, not because of the fans love it.
Because it gives them a fucking hard on. That's right.
No, because of the fan. The fan loves it. And who's the fan?
Leland, I'll say this. When Rob Van Dam says you're taking it too fucking far, you might want to listen.
Think about that.
When Hook is throwing up because of a concussion, you might want to fucking listen.
Oh, he'd be all over Triple H if that was the case. What I'm saying is, though, the fans love it. No, not the fans. One fan loves it. The fan with the money loves it. So I'm going to keep doing it. And at the same time, I'm going to force my guys to keep doing it too. Where in WWE,
don't get me wrong, I love a good New Jack promo. I cannot watch New Jack's matches.
Listen, after the mass transit incident, no, you shouldn't have to.
No, the last thing of New Jack's I watched is him throw Vic Grimes off a fucking scaffold and almost kill the man.
But if you don't, and here's my thing. So, New Jack's legacy was what? He come out to the ring with a shopping cart full of gear, shopping cart full of weapons,
and a fork around a necklace.
Listening to Ice Cube and Dr. Dre.
NWA.
No, it was Ice Cube and Dr. Dre.
He also listened to NWA and Old Dirty Bastard.
Natural Born Killers. Okay, it was when Ice Cube and Dr. Dre got back together. That was the song that's the song they sang. And the other one was, "Yo, I started this gangster, and this is thanks I get. Hello, name of the song, Hello, and then the other one was Natural Born Killers."
Yeah, welcome to the Mark
give you that one,
Podcast,
man.
where a white
That
guy
is the
raps
whitest
poorly.
thing I've ever heard.
Huh?
Welcome
That is
to the
the
Mark
whitest thing
Podcast, where
I've ever
a 50, 60-year-old white man raps poorly.
Well, you know,
We're diverse here at the Mark's Podcast.
up in New England, don't forget. Up in New England,
Fuck John Cena's dad. We got Gerard Millett. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, you know, I've had a good week. You know, I just had a good weekend.
Yeah, you went here.
Yeah, Red Sox won today. But, you know, it's like, it's brutal to watch right now.
While we're waiting for our person to show up, let's talk about WrestleMania. Let's try, because again, there's not
You
much.
can get into it if you want to. No big deal. We can start getting into it. We can, you know.
We'll start fighting later.
Yeah. We can get into WrestleMania 31, Santa Clara, California. Now, by this time, all the pay-per-views had switched to the WWE Network, so there was no more buy rate.
Yeah.
And this one was led off an Intercontinental title 7-way ladder match. Bad News Barrett versus Daniel Bryan versus R-Truth versus Dolph Ziggler versus Stardust versus Dean Ambrose versus Luke Harper. Now, the only thing I remember about this a lot, because of the time difference, a lot of this started at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So you had the bright lights and stuff. You had the sky as your backdrop.
Yeah. So
I think it took away of the lot of some of these early matches. And I think this match took a lot away from.
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was, when we get to one of the matches in particular, I'll tell you why.
Daniel Bryan ended up winning it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we had Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton with Jamie Noble and Joey Mercury. Oh, my God.
Yeah, they were his little entourage. But this is where you saw one of the best RKOs ever done. Seth Rollins went for the foot stomp, got lifted in the air. Randy Orton caught him with the RKO.
Yes.
Which was a precursor to what would happen later that night.
Yep. And then we get to probably the worst match of the night. You had Sting with the NWO coming out versus Triple H.
Sense whatsoever.
And Triple H with the Generation X
coming out with the worst fucking Terminator gimmick I'd ever seen. I never want to see Triple H dressed as the fucking Terminator again.
And like I said, it's probably the worst match of the night. It was to give Sting his finally due WrestleMania moment, just with the wrong guy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, just with the wrong guy.
Sting should have went over.
Huh?
See, they had no. Like, look, if he wasn't gonna win, there was another guy on that card that should have had that match.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But then you had a tag team match: the Bella Twins versus Paige and AJ Lee, which is kind of funny to me. To where wasn't it a year earlier where Paige took the title from AJ Lee?
What's going on, Sergey? But the reason they were having her there was because Punk had already left. It was a big fucking schmoz. They kind of stuck it to her before she left. It was a bunch of bullshit.
And then after that, you had a United States title match of Rusev versus John Cena.
He came out in a fucking tank.
Yep.
Fuck yeah.
What was the WrestleMania where John Cena came down with the chain gang?
The Army of Cenas? That was the WrestleMania 24?
Okay, all right. A long time ago.
Yep.
Hello, Serge. And then after that, doom, 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 doom.
That was by far one of the most interesting entrances I'd ever seen.
Yep.
He came out with his lantern. He touched every one of the scarecrows with his hand like this, and they all came to life. It was the promo for that. No one can deny how good Bray Wyatt it was. And so I got a Bray Wyatt poster hanging right here in a frame. It's him with the mat holding the lantern. he carried that entire feud.
Matt. Yeah.
Um,
Let me ask you this before you go any further on that. Bray Wyatt, this character,
yeah,
or the Fiend?
I love
I'm
this
gonna
character.
rank
I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the Fiend. I'm not going to deny that. So that's the poster I have. But I loved the Bray Wyatt cult character. And if you go back to look at any of those old vignettes of him, if you take the WWE logo off, it is by far one of the most terrifying things you'll ever watch. Remove that one little fucking insignia from those videos and just watch it for what they are. They're haunting.
Tell me that doesn't remind you. Do you trust me?
Maybe some of that, but it also reminds me of lives are going to be in
Waylon Mercy's
hands. You know what I mean?
Waylon Mercy.
Very Cape Fear.
Which is kind of funny because wasn't Waylon Mercy Barry Windham?
No, that was one of the skyscrapers. That was Spivey.
Oh, okay.
So, and again, Bray Wyatt's gone on record of saying that he got permission from Spivey to run that gimmick, to run it like that. And if you look at the lore, he talks about somebody, his daddy, Bray Wyatt's daddy, my daddy was a shrimp boat captain. My daddy was a mean old man. And he talks about it and how he burned his father's boat to the ground, meaning he killed Waylon Mercy and Bray Wyatt was born. It just, if you really are interested in I'm not saying that it's like I'm fucking, Gerard has more fucking right to say this as far as being from business, but if you want to know how to do great fucking promo work, if you want to know how to convey a story, you look at those old Bray Wyatt vignettes from NXT, not Next, NXT, FCW. Look at Jake the Snake's original work when he was talking to Mean Gene Okerlund, and especially the time when Mean Gene was saying, "You're a sick man, Jake Roberts," and he goes, "Thank you very much." When he talked to the Warrior, look back at Raven and ECW.
And I've been watching some of that WWE LFG.
Yeah.
Wrestling psychology. It's a lost art. Not too many people have it anymore. To where you can always already freak out your opponent just by an interview. Jake Roberts had that.
You know who else had that?
Had that.
You also had Cactus Jack. Now, I'm not talking about Mankind. I'm not talking about I'm talking about the character Cactus Jack. Look no further than the Royal Rumble, Cactus Jack versus Triple H, just talking to him before the match in his face. He had the full beard. And he's just talking to him. You see a fear in Triple H, whether that was set or was a gimmick or whatever it may be. You felt it radiate across that screen, and I can only imagine what they felt like in the Garden that night.
Then after that, we get to the heavyweight title.
Oh, before you say anything else, Bray Wyatt had a broken ankle in that match and still wrestled because it was so important to him to wrestle The Undertaker.
Then we get to a match to where Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns.
Well, no, it was Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. And this is what they've called for years, the heist of the century. The first time anybody had the balls to cash in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. Brock beat the fucking piss out of Roman. Thank you. I'm so glad. Everybody didn't see that coming. Everybody thought, oh, no, this is Roman's coronation. Seth Rollins came in, and a crowd that was booing the shit out of a main event cheered when he was holding that world title, swinging it around his head because Seth Rollins swerved everybody.
Now, Seth Rollins pinned Roman Reigns in that match, right?
Yes.
Lesnar never got his rematch, did he?
He did later on. It was a whole fucking schmoz thing because remember, Rollins was a part of the what the fuck are they called at this point in time? The Authority.
Yes. Then we go to WrestleMania 32, which is, right down the street from somebody's house in Dallas. 101,763. Now, the thing about this show was it was 7 hours long.
I remember. It took up my entire fucking city. I couldn't go anywhere to go fucking have because I had a bunch of tourists over here pissing me off. And if you know me, I don't like people. So.
And we're not going to talk about the preliminary matches because those are not the ones most people probably saw anyway. And to go through 7 hours of matches, no, we're going to talk about the ones that made the actual card. The WWE Intercontinental title match, 7-way ladder match. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, The Miz, Dolph Ziggler, Sin Cara, Stardust, and Woo Woo Woo.
You know it.
And guess who won the match?
Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah, he won it.
And lost it the next night
And
to The Miz.
has he been in back since?
No, but he's become the king of the fucking indies. Fucking Matt Cardona has done some amazing work. That's something we didn't talk about today as far as shit that got off the rails. Chelsea Green had a match with Zelina Vega. She wasn't paying attention to the referee and got counted out. And that was a shoot. So, I mean, no one's pissed off. It is what it is. But, like, again.
So Zelina won by countout.
Mm-hmm.
Which, from what I've been hearing reports, she could end up being with her husband.
Real soon.
Yes. Which
And
they'll name her Zelina Black.
But I have no problem with Zelina winning the Women's United States Championship. If anybody's deserving of that, it's her. She's got a fan base like no other.
Listen,
just kind of go with her.
The show she did when they did the show in Puerto Rico.
Oh, fuck yeah. That shows you how much of a star she is internationally.
I mean, the only thing that takes away from that match is how she came out. She was crying because of the reception she got. I get the reasoning. She should have waited till after the match to do it, though.
No, I think that's endearing. I think that shows that these people are fucking human beings. At the end of the day, they may be wrestlers. They may be, bigger than life itself, but they are still human beings, Gerard.
And and I will always say this about Zelina Vega. If there's anybody in WWE who deserves her props, she's a surviving child of a father who died in 9/11.
Yep.
She deserves to hold a title one time just for that alone. What she's overcome with losing her dad, she deserves a title.
I don't put that. No, I mean, I understand like the pity title, but fuck. I mean, I know her dad passed away, and that sucks. The body of work that woman has put in, from being Andrade's manager to what she does being undersized in the ring to the pageantry that she shows every time she comes out there and her new gimmick or whatever, she deserves it because of her in-ring work. I'm sorry that her father died, but all that aside, just because of her quality of work, and
I'm saying is to overcome that in her life, to get to where she has today.
Fair.
Thea Trinidad deserves one shot, one run.
I think she deserves to show these people what she can do on top.
Yep.
And I don't mean that as a sexual pun.
We're not allowed to have those. So please, we'll strike that from the official record. But now to go, the next match after that was AJ Styles, Chris Jericho.
I was whatever. I was more or less waiting for him to get onto a better fucking program because this was Jericho post Punk, just a Jericho post anything that I found interesting. When he went to AEW, he had some good stuff. I like when he was the Ocho. I like when he was the Wizard. When he did all the stuff in AEW, it was great. But here, the only time I've liked Jericho in the past couple of years in WWE was when he had basically ripped off the Nick Bockwinkel gimmick. I didn't like the list. I thought the list was stupid. In fact, Trips will tell you she was very upset at Kevin Owens, though, because she liked Chris Jericho then. Okay. She was very upset at the Celebration of Friendship.
The Festival of Friendship was the greatest thing ever.
You were upset. I thought you were upset.
I was upset, but it was intriguing and wonderful television. Kevin Owens could eat a dick at that point.
It was not as good as This Is Your Life, Rock.
I think it was better. No, you're right. No. The Rock thanks you for everything you've done. Well, The Rock's birthday is
9 million people watched that. We go from that to a 6-man tag match. The New Day versus the League of Nations, which just the tag name alone, Alberto Del Rio,
go take a piss match.
Huh?
That was your go take a piss match.
Yes. League of Nations won because the New Day weren't over as much as they would end up becoming. Then you had a no-holds-barred street fight, Dean Ambrose versus Brock Lesnar.
which again was garbage because they couldn't get on the same page. And let's be honest, Brock was in his fucking feelings that night.
Yep. Then you had the women's triple threat match for a vacant title. This is when it ended up going from a Divas title to the WWE Women's title.
Yep.
Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair. Charlotte takes the title.
Which I think that was the wrong move. Ultimately, it turned out all right, but Charlotte was...
How we've come in 9 years.
Yeah.
Charlotte's still in the main event. Charlotte's still going to be one of the top matches on the card. Then we get to a match to where, if you think about it, 3 months before the match was announced, we never thought we'd ever see this person back in a WWE ring.
Yeah.
Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker.
For what it was an excellent match. It was a nostalgia trip. It was what it was. Yeah, but
Shane damn near broke his body for this match.
He didn't break it for the match. He broke it for his daddy.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest issue with Shane. I think Shane has a great mind for the business. I think Shane, as a human being, you knew him, was a nice guy. My issue with Shane is he was forever trying to grasp the love and attention of a man that never, I guess, at least from stories. I don't know them personally, but
do you know anybody who has more energy than brains?
You. It must be that generation then.
That's when Shane got into the ring, he had more energy than brains. But we go from that to the Andre the Giant Memorial 2016 Battle Royal. Diamond Dallas Page versus Tatanka versus R-Truth, Kane, Miyazaki Henry, Damian Sandow, The Big Slow, Goldust, Fandango, Connor, Darren Young, Heath Slater, Jack Swagger, Victor, Curtis Axel, Bo Dallas, Adam Rose, Tyler Breeze, Shaquille O'Neal, and your eventual winner, Baron Corbin.
It did nothing for him. It didn't help anything.
Nope.
Baron Corbin ended up being a jobber and eventually let go years later when he finally started showing some actual talent, which he can make it. That's a bad thing about Baron Corbin.
JBL coming out with him, I thought was going to make Baron Corbin a superstar.
I thought it could help, but again, Baron Corbin got anything over they put in front of him. They just didn't want to fucking spend the time to make it work.
After that match, though, you had a singles match, an impromptu singles match. Eric Rowan versus The Rock, that I think lasted all of 9 seconds.
More burying of the Wyatt family after years and years of burying a fucking brilliant mind.
Yeah. And then we get the WWF World title. Triple H versus Roman Reigns. Now, the year before, he had the belt stolen from him, basically, because he was about to pin Brock, and Seth comes in, pins him. Now he's your champion.
Yeah. He lost it in the Royal Rumble because he was the first man in, and Triple H came out and eliminated him in the Royal Rumble. He then went on to face Dean Ambrose, was the whole thing, which was It was a mid-match, and then Roman and him, and this is supposed to be Roman's coronation into the main event scene, and it's like this is them saying he's the guy, but this is more fucking senile.
That's 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
2 years in a row, he main events WrestleMania now.
Yeah.
Then we get to WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, Florida. 75,000. In the first match, Shane McMahon versus AJ Styles. Now, if I'm right, this wasn't a bad match. I'm trying to think if Shane went coast to coast. I think he did. And I think he tried to go for it again, and AJ did the flying elbow. Yeah, the flying jalapeno. Then after that, you had another United States title match with Chris Jericho versus Kevin Owens. KO won.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, we go to a fatal four-way WWE Raw's women's title match. We got Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Nia Jax, and Bayley. Bayley walked in the champ. Bayley walked out the champ. big whoop-de-doo. WWE Raw Tag Team Title Fatal 4-Way Ladder Match. The return of, but these are 4 participants: The Club, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, versus Cesaro and Sheamus, versus Big Cass and Enzo Amore,
and Trips' favorite tag team of all time,
versus The Drunk and the Hobbled Leg, the Hardy Boys.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
Really?
Really? Of course, the Hardy Boys go over on their return to WWE. And I will say this. The pop they got when they came out.
Absolutely.
That was a pop.
Jeff Hardy can still make panties wet. I don't know why, but he can. And there you go. You have Matt to mop it up.
And then, would you agree? So we're at WrestleMania 33 right now.
Mm-hmm.
This would happen to be the worst match in WrestleMania history to this point. Maybe
Gerard Millette versus the Legion of Doom Spikes.
Maurice and The Miz versus John Cena and Nikki Bella, where he gets down and proposes to the woman.
And then they break up 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
This is more scripted.
It was more publicity stunt than anything.
Look, I'm sorry. There's a way to do this, and there's a perfect example. Macho and Elizabeth were getting divorced whenever she came and saved him from sensational Sherry.
Yep.
But they made grown women cry in the audience because that was a beautiful love story. God rest her soul.
And it came across as
genuine.
Truly, it was
because
happening.
No matter what they say and how much they fought, Randy Poffo loved Elizabeth.
I was in the back when they were showing the people in the audience. And when those 3 came through the curtain, everybody who was around gave them a standing ovation, including Vince, because of how they pulled that thing off.
They loved each other.
No, Sherry, all 3 of them were hugging in the back. Because of how they pulled it off. And when the boss gets up and claps, because of the crowd, he was yelling, yes, 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 because the camera got to get the people in the crowd with the tears.
But that's what I'm saying. They told a beautiful story. You can't fake that kind of love.
True emotion you can't fake.
They may have been going through a divorce, but look. I will say this:
an on-screen divorce.
Yes. No. They actually were getting divorced at the time.
No, because remember they were about to get remarried. They were getting remarried on screen.
So that was during the time they had split up. It was after the Hogan shit where Hogan went and stayed with Linda and Terry.
No. That was after that. That was after this was.
My bad. You were there. My bad. That's the other thing. You were there, so you can tell me a factual recount of the situation.
You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both. Hey, it's the facts of life, though. But
He's not the fucking facts of life. Not.
But then after that, we get to a non-sanctioned match of Seth Rollins versus Triple H with Stephanie. Seth Rollins wins the match.
Yeah, that's when he became the Kingslayer.
Yeah. Then we get to another WWE title match. Sorry. Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton.
One of the worst. Like I don't blame Randy for this one. I don't blame Bray. They were just rushed. The story was great. The build was great. Everything was great. There was too many gimmicks with this shit. They started making the ring look like worms and maggots and shit. Yep. It was not well produced. I think everybody would be the first to say that this is probably the end of the Bray Wyatt cult leader character.
Yes. And then a match 13 years in the making, and we all hated it the first time around. Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar.
This was, I thought, okay. It had everything it needed. Fucking 2 beefy motherfuckers beating the shit at each other. And this is before I felt like fucking Goldberg was a fucking joke.
And if they had done the business right the first time, you wouldn't be having people hate them. Because That's all.
My only issue with Goldberg up to that point was, dude, get over it. Your chubby son. I don't need to hear about you and your chubby son wanting to be a hero. I don't care. The time has passed. You were the man back in the day. That's great. Hold on to that. But the piece of shit that I'm seeing here, you almost killed fucking Taker. You fucking took the title out the Fiend, which you had no business doing, even in fucking Saudi Arabia. Goldberg can eat a dick.
Then we get to WWE Women's SmackDown 6-pack challenge. You have Carmella with James Ellsworth versus Becky Lynch versus Natalya versus Mickie James versus Alexa Bliss versus Naomi. And Naomi goes over and gets a title.
Yeah, but she needed that. She was going back and forth. She was floundering, and it was going back to giving someone the opportunity that they hadn't had before. Good on them for actually fucking pulling the trigger on that.
Somebody call my mama.
You're not dying, Jacob. I love you.
And then you have the no holds barred match, Taker versus Reigns, where Reigns becomes number 2.
This is the thing. I mean, Taker was, you could tell he wasn't the same guy. He had a decent match with Bray the year before. This was the year that everybody started noticing that he was just not the same man anymore. Right. He was literally wrestling once a year. He was training all year for 1 year.
Yep.
For one match.
And the sad part was, maybe up until then, it was the most looked forward to match at WrestleMania.
Absolutely. I think that, in my opinion, Brock should have never beaten a streak. It should have been Bray, but that's me being biased. And then he should have walked off into the sunset. Perfect world, he would have walked off into the sunset the night that he and Triple H had the fucking Hell in the Cell.
Yep. Then we go from that to WrestleMania 34 now. Now we're back in New Orleans at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. And we have 78,000 in the building. And the night starts with the Intercontinental title triple threat match. Finn Balor versus The Miz versus Seth Rollins. If I'm right, this was a pretty good match.
It was. My only issue is that I feel like they've dropped the ball for years with Finn Balor, because after he got injured, after winning being the first Universal Champion, they never pulled the trigger again. The guy is talented as fuck. I mean, but again, he goes back to being complacent and getting paid. They paid him. And if you pay somebody enough, they'll fucking sell their soul.
Oh, absolutely. Next match. WWE SmackDown Women's title match. By the way, Jacob, you have to hold on to the next match, okay? But this one is WWE SmackDown Women's title match. Asuka versus Charlotte Flair. Charlotte came in the champ. She went out
again, it's bullshit. They were trying to fucking make Charlotte the fucking, this was the birth of Rick with tits.
Yep.
This was the birth of Rick with tits.
Absolutely. Then you had the United States title fatal 4-way match. Randy Orton as the champion. Bobby Roode and Rusev versus an eventual winner, Jinder Mahal. So let me just repeat that for Jacob. Jinder Mahal. And then you go to a mixed tag team match of Stephanie McMahon and Triple H versus Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey. Look at greatest match in WrestleMania. Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey win. See, I know just by mentioning that guy's name, he come to life.
Miraculous recovery.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Ronda Rousey, she had her run. She did her job. I mean, at the end of the day,
trust me, we'll be talking about that in the next WrestleMania after that.
She did her thing. She did what she needed to do, man. I'll give her that. I was never a big fan of hers. She didn't move the needle for me, at least.
Then you get to the SmackDown Tag Team title, triple threat. The Usos versus the New Day versus the Bludgeon Brothers. Harper and Rowan end up going over.
Yeah.
Was it good for them to get out from underneath Bray Wyatt?
Yeah, I mean, but they ultimately they got into a different gimmick, but which is the same gimmick. It was more violent. It was them. It was I love the Bludgeon Brothers gimmick because it was a throwback to people like Demolition. It was a throwback to people like the Legion of Doom, and you had two guys who could play off each other and do it well. You had Luke Harper, who was absolutely the brains of the operation. You know that he had a mind for the business. You don't believe me? Go watch the early days of AEW with the Brody Lee character. He was excellent. And then you had Harper, or you had Rowan, who knew how to be the bludgeon guy of that whole thing. Like he was going to be, the guy who just beat the shit out of somebody. That was his shtick.
Now, unfortunately, the next match is probably this guy's worst match at WrestleMania. Even though the person he was against, John Cena versus The Undertaker.
No, they hit the greatest hits. They even talked about this match. The Undertaker, he had a stinker. He had a stinker the year before, and so he trained all year. I feel bad that he didn't get to go 30 minutes because they just wanted to do the greatest hits.
Mm-hmm. I think that match lasted like 3 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a hit. It was in and out. But the thing is, they had promoted this match for years. Like, well, what are we going to get John Cena versus The Undertaker? When are we going to get John Cena? And
we got a watered down version of it. And
if you want to watch the real version, go watch them back at SummerSlam when Undertaker's motorcycle wouldn't start.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a damn good match.
Yeah. Then you had a tag team match. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon.
The build for this was good. I can't remember if the match was any good. I mean, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn rarely have a bad match against anybody or against each other.
And listen, people might not ever want to admit it. Shane was not a bad worker.
He's a bad puncher.
Yeah, but he was not a bad worker.
No, he could sell for the best of him. He just fucking needed to chill the fuck out and stay off the Adderall.
If you needed a banger of a match, he wasn't it. If you needed an aerial spot fest, he could absolutely do it.
Oh, yeah, he would have shined in AEW.
Yes. It's not over yet. But then you had the Raw Women's title match. Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax. We know how that
Which, again, I like this one because it showed Nia Jax had more depth.
Yep.
She didn't keep the title long because they had to put it on Ronda. So they basically did all this work to make Nia Jax a face and everything they did for her, being bullied and showing that you can be bullied as a big woman and all this other stuff just to fucking make her terrified of Ronda Rousey. It was stupid.
I remember this match was a damn good match. It was Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles.
Yes, but the wrong man won, in my opinion.
Yep.
And then having Shinsuke fucking low blow him at the end was stupid. If you wanted to turn Shinsuke heel, cool. Then do it during the match and have him win the belt. Make it mean something.
This next one, I remember watching it. I said, why are they doing this to these two guys? The Bar, Cesaro and Sheamus versus Braun Strowman and Nicholas.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yes.
Pick the kid out the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, what the heck? The kid does go down in history as being the youngest champion ever.
It was a referee's kid, too. It was like, he got a random kid. No. Huh?
John Cone.
Yeah.
And then the Universal title match, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar.
Again, third year in a fucking row.
Yep. That's third year in a row he's main eventing.
Same guys, too.
Yep. WrestleMania 35 in MetLife Stadium. Universal title match. First match, Brock versus Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins goes over.
Yep. And it was impromptu. It just kind of fucking happened. Like boom, 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 it's on.
Then you had Randy Orton versus AJ Styles. AJ goes over in this one.
Yep.
And then you had a SmackDown Fatal 4-Way match. The Usos versus Aleister Black and Ricochet versus Rusev and Shinsuke Nakamura versus The Bar. And the Usos go over. They kept the title.
I think that they were really working towards making the Usos a big deal back at that point in time. I don't. Aleister Black and Ricochet coming up from NXT. That was the only reason they were in a tag team together. I thought that was a stupid reason to put someone together.
Then you had a Falls Count Anywhere match: The Miz versus Shane McMahon.
Yeah, this is when Shane was a fucking heel, and he had fucking beat up the Miz's dad or some bullshit.
Yes, the Miz's dad.
Like your son ended up fucking fighting me because I punched you in the face.
Then you have probably something to where this was a feel-good moment for these girls. You had a fatal four-way. We had the Boston Hug Connection, Bayley and Sasha Banks, versus Beth Phoenix and Natalya, versus Nia Jackson, Tamina, versus the Iconics, Billie Kay and Paige.
Iconics. Wait for it. I know someone here that loves the Iconics.
Oh, is Jacob still there? Oh my God!
No. Hold on. Nope. Is she there? No, maybe not. She loves her fellow Aussies.
Oh. And then we go to the WWE title match: Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston. And I will give it. I enjoyed the fact that Kofi got his moment here because this was actually a pretty damn good match.
It was, and Daniel Bryan could make a fucking paper bag look good. Look what he did with someone who can actually wrestle.
Then you got Rey Mysterio versus Samoa Joe.
Don't even remember that match.
Oh, exactly. Then you had Drew McIntyre versus Roman. So the streak is broken. So he's not in the main event. No holds barred match. Batista versus Triple H. This was a letdown.
Give me what I want.
Yeah, that was a letdown. Then you had the singles match of Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin. Another letdown. Angle was just past his prime at this point.
Well, I mean, he's been taken. I won't call him what they called him, but his body had taken the damage over all the years.
Mm-hmm.
There's one person who's undefeated in anything they do, and that's Father Time. And Father Time had finally caught up to Kurt Angle.
Then you had an Intercontinental title match of Finn Balor versus Bobby Lashley with Leo Rush. And I'm going to put you like this. Leo Rush was more over than Bobby Lashley.
Leo Rush was like a mixture of fucking Clarence Thomas and Slick back in the day.
And then the WWE Raw Women's Championship triple threat match. Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey, having the worst pin in WrestleMania history. Becky Lynch won, but Ronda Rousey's shoulders were nowhere near being on the mat.
What I will say is that's a camera angle fuck up, and I will say that the right woman still won.
That's what I'm saying. The worst non-shoulders on the mat.
But they should have done it to mean something. Great, that happened. The referee didn't see it. They can go that route. But it should have meant something to where at SummerSlam you were going to get the one-on-one between Becky and Ronda, and you never got it.
Right. Because they couldn't go backwards. They didn't want to replay that back. And they should have talked about it the next night. You won the title without pinning my thing because
they
of it.
They did it with fucking Gunther this time. They did it with Gunther and Randy.
Yep. They should have. Remember, this was the old man.
I'm glad you can acknowledge that the old man's fucking up and you're always kissing his ass.
Well, now we get to WrestleMania 36, which is during COVID. So there was nobody in attendance. It was taped on one day, shown on another day. Obviously, no fans are in the building. We get to a first night. Now, this is also the first night of two WrestleManias. First time of 2 nights of WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
We get the WWE Women's Tag Team match. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. And, not for nothing, it was hard to get hyped for this always WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Nobody was in the building, stuff like that.
And the thing about this, they did the best they could with what they had. A lot of people were giving them shit about it and bitching about it, but I was like, dude, they're trying to give you something. Shut the fuck up and enjoy it. It's better than nothing. I understand being upset, but how do you think these people feel? They wait all year for this moment, and the person, we don't like hell. We don't even have to go into the whole.
And 1 month, 1 month to put this together.
The person I feel horrible about was Drew McIntyre, because he won the Royal Rumble. He had the setup. He had kicked Brock out the fucking match. And in 1 month, everything changed. And it's hard, and I get it. But people bitched and moaned and complained. Nobody knew what was about to happen to the world. I felt so bad. I felt so bad for him because as much as I think that he's oversaturated now and he's kind of a fucking douchebag, he's funny as shit. Drew McIntyre should have had his flowers, and he never really got them.
No, he never got he never got back into that picture.
Now, I believe it was this year we got 2 really cool ass matches.
This year?
Was it that year?
Well, the next match was Elias versus King Corbin. Elias won. Hold on a second there.
I'm thinking AJ.
The next one was Shayna Baszler versus Becky Lynch.
Which, again, this was weird. Why do you have Shayna Baszler biting Becky Lynch like she's some sort of cannibal? It's fucking stupid.
Correct. Intercontinental title match. Daniel Bryan with Drew Gulak versus Sami Zayn with Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura.
This is when Sami was walking around looking like a fucking member of the Communist Party of Cuba.
Yep. Then you had the SmackDown Tag Team title, triple threat, ladder match. But it's funny is it says John Morrison versus Kofi Kingston versus Jimmy Uso. Who else was involved?
It was those 3. They were representing their team.
Yes. With John Morrison keeping the title. You had a no disqualification match. Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens.
Which was actually crazy because he wanted to jump off the boat, and he did. He damn sure jumped off, and Kevin Owens damn near killed himself, but he won it.
Oh, we had a 24/7 thing. R-Truth lost to Mojo Rawley.
Yeah.
Then you had the Universal title match. Braun Strowman defeating Goldberg.
This is after he had beaten the Fiend. Yep. It was a whole fucking thing. But we got something pretty cool.
AJ Styles in a Boneyard match versus The Undertaker.
Which was very well produced, in my opinion.
Yes.
And to watch him be Mark Calloway and not... Again, they also don't talk about it. His brother had passed away the same time as this. And again, look, you may not like who Mark Calloway is. Some people may not like The Undertaker, but the fucking man was business.
Yep.
Always.
And he always protected business, too.
Absolutely.
Then we get to night 2. Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. For the WWE NXT Women's title.
Wrong person won. Because Charlotte did not do anything for that belt or that brand.
Singles match. And this was Bobby Lashley with Lana versus Aleister Black. Aleister Black wins. And I think this was because Lana leaked. Was it because she leaked out the fact? No.
No, this is what. Well, after that,
Yeah.
This is fucking. They brought her back. She was doing a whole thing where she was trying to demasculate fucking Rusev. It was stupid.
Right. And that's
the old man's booking.
Yep. Dolph Ziggler was versus Sonya Deville versus Otis. That was just.
Yeah, they were doing this whole thing with him and what's her name, the blonde, Mandy Rose.
Last man standing match: Randy Orton versus Edge. This was not a bad match.
I liked the match. It was just they needed a crowd.
Correct. Then once again, you had Mojo Rawley losing to Rob Gronkowski.
I bet you just loved that one, didn't you?
No, because now he's in Tampa.
But he was fucking a Patriot back then.
No, because I'm saying, I'm trying to remember if he was in Tampa then. I can't remember. Then you had the Street Profits versus Angel Gods and Austin Theory with Zelina Vega. The Street Profits won.
Absolutely, because they were fucking killing it.
Yep. SmackDown Women's Title Fatal 5-Way Elimination match.
Dear.
Lacey Evans, Sasha Banks, Naomi, Tamina.
What? Wait, hold on. What was that?
Our guest is here.
Oh,
Okay. Let's just finish this up and we'll put the other ones to the side.
all right.
Okay. Bailey winning the title.
Yep.
Oh, hey, she was the champion at the time. Sorry. Then we get to the Firefly Funhouse match.
Which was interesting. I'm glad that they both had a lot of input in doing the match. I just don't. Again, it was strange to see all this without. It was the first year they'd done cinematic matches, and it just yeah.
And for first time out, obviously because they taped it, they were able to do it their way. But it was very interesting how they did it. I don't know if you could do it again unless you had another situation where you had a pre-film it like that in front of a
Or
live
you had
crowd.
a fucking guy like Bray Wyatt who could fucking come up with something like that. But hey,
Correct. And then the WWE title, McIntyre versus
Beat
Brock. And oh no,
how that went.
Brock ended up going over. So now, Dan, would you like to go into this?
Yeah, sure. So Gerard did a fucking thing with a guy, dumbass from fucking the Panhandle, and I don't like the guy. I haven't watched it. I've only got cliff notes. We have someone coming on who's helped us as far as like researching for work on the channel. Was supposed to be on before. Things didn't work out. He's here now. He wants to talk to Gerard. So we believe in a free open platform where you can say what you want and you don't fucking do a bunch of jump cuts and bullshit. But yeah, bring him on.
Hey guys.
Hey Monty, what's going on?
Yeah.
Good
Good to
evening,
see
Mike.
you guys. Well,
Hello.
just hey, how are you? Good to see you. So, guys, I don't usually jump on too many podcasts out there, but I've known Gerard for a long time, and unfortunately, I saw Gerard was on Lee Cole's the Devil. What is it?
The
The
Dickhead.
Devil, whatever the fuck it is, right? So.
I'll let you describe it the way you want to describe it.
The dickhead.
So I was, and again, I want to, I appreciate it, your guys' forum. I would love to have an open conversation. Gerard, I was really disappointed that you went on that show. A couple of reasons why. I thought they made you look really bad. And from knowing you, knowing your history with the WWE and Mel, I thought that they just set you up. And I we had that discussion before, and I asked you not to go on that show because I felt you couldn't go, you were going into enemy territory, man. They were going to make you look bad no matter how hard you tried. I think I spoke to you earlier today and I said, you should have brought your partner Dan on there with you. Right. And protected your interests. Again, there was some video cuts by Lee Cole. And if you're trying to make a statement and protect Mel's legacy, and again, I don't know what happened or what, you have your story, some other guys have their story. But if you were there to protect Mel's legacy, I thought it was a huge mistake going on that show. And if you had to go on that show, you should have brought on your partner there at least to protect your interests. And so, I reached out to your guys' show, and I appreciate you allowing me to come on. And I wanted to discuss a few things with you, both of you guys, actually.
So
that's my statement to start, right?
I do want to run something by you. So Gerard came down to Fort Worth and Dallas with the pretenses that he was going to meet the dickhead in the stockyards. They're supposed to have dinner or whatever. And all of a sudden, the weather's bad. Everything's horrible. We can't get down there. I want to ask you, because I've asked him, and he said, well, that's a possibility. I'm going to ask you, Monty. You've dealt with a dickhead longer than I have.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that at any way, shape, or form? Do you believe that he actually had weather issues, or was he too much of a little pussy to fucking show up?
I'd be honest with you, I don't believe a thing Lee Cole says at this point. There was one point where, this whole ring boy stuff was dead for such a long time. And on me and my partner, we have open discussions and we bring on all these types of guests. And I'm not saying we rebirthed the Ring Boy thing, but it was so dead for such a long time. And when we had Lee on right after the death of his brother, it was a conversation. It started to have a little bit of a rebirth. And then you eventually have, this guy deciding to go and start doing a wrestling channel. Again, I didn't like Lee. I did not dislike Lee Cole at the time, but again, you don't know, right? You guys have been in wrestling a long time, right? And whatever, podcasting, wrestling, there's a lot of craziness out there, a lot of bullshit going on.
Yeah.
So, Lee asked when he started his wrestling channel again to come on the show, which we did. And then I think at some point Gerard reached out to us and we said, hey, we're open to, we don't know the story, man. We're not there. We were two fans that watched wrestling, right? We don't know what's true, what's not.
Exactly.
And we have these interviews, let people speak. Gerard came on and I actually reached out to Lee and I said, hey, Lee, just so you know, I'm having this gentleman, Gerard, on the show. Lee bugged out. And that's where the problem started between me and Lee. And then I started to see the true Lee. All right. And, there was a point.
Mike, one
Lee,
thing.
go ahead.
Just so you know, Dan, and Mike will tell you this. And he actually said to me, Gerard, I'm going to talk to Lee about you. Do you mind if Lee comes on? And Mike, what was my response?
You said no problem.
So I didn't back away from him then.
So,
well, just so you guys understand, I was going to have Lee come on, not to challenge you, but I felt that he should have the opportunity to rebuke anything you were going to say, right?
absolutely.
Again, right?
But-
We don't know. We know nothing. We ask questions and then when you guys we could start talking. But then we had a guy, we're trying to build a channel. So we've got numerous shows on it. We had a guy named Joe Lowry I guess you got hold of him, Gerard. And I already had told Joe that you had already been on the show. And he said, well, I'm going to interview him differently. And I'm like, look, do not make this guy look bad, right? That was a prerequisite. Do not make this guy interview him like an interviewer. Don't come in there with your pre-knowledge or whatever you think is going on. And that interview that he had with you, that I kicked him off the channel because of that, because I felt he already had his agenda. I'm not a big agenda guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that shit. And again, he ended up working with Lee Cole. They had a falling out. I would talk to Lee Cole from time to time, but Lee knows where I stand on this whole thing. And, I don't like when people are made to look bad, whether it's by video cutting, a 2-on-1 situation. Okay, go ahead.
No, what you just said, but no. Well, I'll just, so for some clarification for anybody that sees this, my wife did a documentary on the fucking Ring Boy shit, and I love her work. I'm her biggest fan. Okay,
She's a great editor, by the way.
Absolutely. She reached out to y'all. She reached out to y'all, and you were kind enough to say, yes, we can use this. And again, I want everybody to know, Monty, let us use it. Didn't have an issue. We put it together. The video debuted. Gerard instantly reached out to us. We didn't go looking for Gerard. Gerard came to us. And through correspondence, we decided, okay, we're going to have a sit-down interview. We're going to pre-record it. I didn't go into that wanting to make Gerard look stupid. I wanted to talk to somebody else who was, and here's the key point, actually there. Not someone who heard it from his brother, his sister, or whatever. Fuck that. I want to know who was actually there. It was supposed to be maybe an hour and a half interview. It turned into 3. Y'all saw 2 hours of it. I thought it was well done. I thought that we didn't cut anything that wasn't substantial to the fucking video. We cut out joking that we had. We cut out a fucking conversation we had in the beginning. But Gerard will tell you everything in there was pretty much raw, and that's how I prefer to do things, because I don't. What I have seen of what Gerard did was a fucking mishmash and cut up, and you can tell where it's fucking chopped up, and you have 2 fucking idiots who don't know anything about what they're talking about, who heard about it from his deceased brother, I think is bullshit. And anybody you ask who has any salt in the game knows it's shit, but they continue to push this narrative, and they make my man over here look like a fucking jackass, and he's not. He's very intelligent.
Mhm.
I went into this knowing Gerard and thinking he was a victim. I came out of it respecting the man more than I ever thought I would and becoming close friends with him. So when I see this fucking idiot come in there and fuck with him, I take it personal. So, like, again, that's where I stand on. Like, Monty is, as far as Monty let us use the stuff, that's how I met Gerard. I do not like Lee Cole. I'm not going to pretend like I like Lee Cole. When Gerard told me he did this, I got a pit in my stomach because I'm like, I already know what they fucking did. I already know what they fucking did.
You know,
And I mean, Gerard, you said to me, Gerard, you should speak, but you said to me, the first thing Lee Cole said to you is, "Do not tell me you're doing this video," right?
absolutely. And you know,
Gerard,
I've said it to you, I've said it to Dan, I've even said it to him. You know, in this whole thing about the ring boy stuff, guys, it would have been very easy for me to go the other way with this for the money. Did we lose him?
I didn't do that. He's back.
Okay. It would have been very easy to go the other way for this for the money. Very easy. But then I would have had to put my integrity, my morals, my everything about me. I would have had to put that to the side just for a paycheck. I would rather have people look down and say, "Hey, you didn't do this, but I didn't sell out. I never will sell out. Whether you believe me or not. I was there. I saw stuff. Okay? But the one thing I didn't see is people raping, sexually molesting children. As much as people want me to see it, it never came into my sight of view. I can't tell you what didn't happen when I wasn't around. And for people to constantly say to me, "But it could have happened. But it could have happened." You know what?
You could have, would have,
Everything could have happened.
Yeah.
But if I can't see it, how do I know what happened?
So
And for these two guys to come after in that kind of way, and I kept asking them, why weren't the people doing this stuff stopping it? And they tell me it doesn't matter that they weren't stopping it. Key words. It didn't matter.
Can we let's talk about some good.
I want to ask you this: as a man, as a human being,
Mhm.
you're Shane Douglas. You're on a fucking plane. You see a kid blowing fucking Mel. What do you do?
So I'm going to answer the question in a few things. We've got a lot of problems with a lot of wrestlers at this point on the show. I'll go into a few things. You're 100% with the Shane Douglas thing, right? You saw it. You see this supposedly happen, and you don't do a thing. And Cole, and I call his partner the puppet, right? Because the puppet just goes with whatever Cole's got to say. He's like, he's like this, right?
Yeah.
The guy has the personality of a fucking wet rag too. That's a whole nother issue. But they said to you, Gerard, well, they wanted to keep their jobs, right? You know what? Maybe Shane Douglas did see it. But Shane Douglas didn't give a shit enough to do anything about it. So what does that tell you about the man? See, if I was interviewing Shane Douglas, he was telling that story, I would have said, why didn't you do something about it? So let's talk about Rita Charlton and Vince McMahon. Rita's got a problem with the show. Mario Mancini's got a problem with the show because we've called out Mario Mancini numerous times. Because now the main thing that goes on is the Vince McMahon hate, right? This Vince did this, Vince did that, right? That's what Wrestling with the Devil built its show around. And he was supposed to be in jail, according to Lee Cole months ago. He had inside information. Last year, it hasn't happened. The problem is, Gerard, when you were speaking, they were railroading you, right? Because you were at a point like, hey, there was a question, right? That you guys just said was, hey, it didn't happen. You didn't see it, right? And they're like, just because you didn't see it, I think he used like movies or whatever else, and why it didn't happen. Here's some facts, okay? Tom Cole was a ring boy. He was 18 years of age. I'm sorry. If I'm a homosexual and I go to you, Dan, and I say, hey, I want to blow you, and you turn me down, right? That's not sexual harassment, man.
No.
Like, if I want to be with you, that's not sexual harassment. Now, if I am in charge of you and I fire you because of it, well, that could end up being a problem. But here's the issue. These are cold, hard facts. Linda McMahon paid for Tom Cole's college, and he dropped out, and she pulled him out. Tom Cole was 18 years of age, and all we ever got from Lee Cole about the story, and we also had Lee Cole's sister on, by the way, strangely wasn't talking to him because she didn't like him. But that's a whole nother thing, right? Okay. So he got his feet rubbed by Terry Garvin, and he didn't like it. And he got mad and slept in a van. Oh, I'm sorry. Toughen the fuck up, right? You got paid college by the McMahons, and you drop out because all you ever want to be is in the WWE setting up rings.
So this is the thing that Gerard told me when I had the interview, that exactly what you're talking about. Tom wanted to be one of the boys.
Yes.
He wasn't content being a fucking ring boy. And there's more than one person that can corroborate that story who doesn't like fucking Tom for everything they said. From all interviews, and this is facts from other people. So, I wasn't there. So I'm getting information from people who were actually there. He was a douchebag. It's what it is. I've not heard one person say one positive thing about Tom, except for his brother.
But table that, right? Here's a guy who had opportunity and he lost his job. That is the end of it. So what does he do? He claims Pat Patterson grabbed his nuts or whatever else. Look, Tony Atlas is a friend of the show. Tony would say Pat Patterson would grab his dick. Okay? I mean, he said it. Okay? But here's the deal. Right. Exactly. And the question, I think, was led why didn't you report it already? And basically Tony didn't give a shit. Tony could protect himself and he wanted to keep his money. Listen, here's the facts. Bruno Sammartino, superstar Billy Graham, they all knew this was going on. They went on Donahue and said it. And not one person said, why didn't you do shit about it, dude? Mm-hmm. I know this. If I was in a parking lot and I saw a man raping a child, you know what I mean? I would probably do something about it. In fact, my history has shown I will do something about it. Let's also not forget, of all the stuff that was said when you were on that show, Gerard, okay, it was all hypothetical. The only facts we have here is the only one convicted of something was Lee Cole of kidnapping. Okay, that is documented. Anyone could look it up. You can post it. He plea bargained it down. He went to jail. He is the only human being here that has been found guilty of anything that's going on here, right? Vince McMahon has never been found guilty. Pat Patterson's never been found guilty. I'm sorry, Terry Garvin's been never found guilty of anything. And just like the puppet said on the show was, just because Michael Jackson got away with it, I don't know what Michael Jackson got away with. All I know is he was never found guilty of anything. That's a fact. You hear stories.
We can all have our theories about that.
Well, and let's not forget Janelle Grant. Janelle Grant opened this door for all this to happen, right?
Yes.
Because now she opened the door, and now Rita Charlton got some money. Now the ring boys are all coming back. Oh, I was molested.
Monty, what ring boys? Everybody's fucking nameless. Who the fuck?
They're supposed to name these guys in the lawsuit, and the big problem is they don't want their names out there. Why? Because people are gonna fucking bury them. But it goes from 5 to now 10 to now what? Next week it'll be 15. That's it. It's a money grab. Everybody's looking for WWE Vince McMahon money, right? Shut up money. Listen, here's a fact. I'm sorry. Janelle Grant, you hooked up with Vince McMahon. You got paid. You took the money. You're a whore. End of story. Hey, wrestler, you fucked Vince McMahon because it would help your career. He paid you off $2 million. Guess what? Game over. You're done. You have been paid. If you had a problem, that is your problem.
Well, I can put you like this. If you want to look at it like that, Monty, Tom took money. I never did.
Oh, no, Tom and Lee took money. Remember,
they took money.
That. They both took fucking money.
They both took money.
And you remember Lee has already told. You already know Lee has already told the story that Tom went behind his back and made a deal, and Lee was already a convicted felon for laundering or something. Here's the problem. Here's the other thing. Tom Cole committed suicide. It's a shame. I feel bad for his family. God bless his family. But the fact is, Tom Cole had brain cancer. I'm sorry. When you have brain cancer, I would think at some point maybe it does fuck up your brain a little bit, and maybe you might do something like shoot yourself or kill yourself. I mean, I didn't, and then all of a sudden it becomes it. Go ahead.
I'm glad you bring it up because I actually said, I don't know if it made this cut. It might make the next one about. I can't talk about Tom Cole, the father or the husband, and I won't. I won't besmirch the husband or the father. I didn't know that guy. He could have been on to be a great father, good husband. I won't talk about that. But then I brought up the fact of, but Mel still has family alive. And I was told, we don't give a fuck about that guy's family. So you go on a show and you tell people, don't talk about my brother. But then this guy still has family alive and you don't give a fuck about his family? What makes your brother's family so much better than that guy's family? They lost an uncle and a brother. What's the difference? That guy died of a heart attack. He was lonely in a heart attack 3 miles away from his family. He didn't want nothing to do with his family because he was ashamed of how things turned out in his life.
How about push this narrative? How about, you want these fuckers want to push a narrative. How about Mel died of a fucking broken heart because the only thing he loved, he was taken from him. Did they ever think about that?
But they told me to shut up when I was talking about he had a family still alive. I've talked to his family. And they got two people in this world. They're disgusted with one person and disappointed with the other. You think he can figure out the two?
All right, so you guys bring up very valid points, but let's understand this. There is the possibility that Mel was doing something sideways. We don't know.
No.
You don't know. You don't know. I don't know. But here's the facts. The man was never convicted. And if you're going to come on a podcast, whether you're Shane Douglas, Mario Mancini, Paul Roma, or whoever the fuck clowns that come out of the woodwork because they want views, because they think they're going to be rich off of it. The fact of the matter is, this is what I said to Mario Mancini.
I bring up the Sid Justice one. I bring up Sid Justice to them because Sid Justice said he saw Mel. Hey, what's all these kids doing around a hotel and stuff like that? And Warlord said, oh, they're all here for Mel Phillips. If that was the case, Sid, then why didn't you do something about it?
Sid never said anything about sexual abuse.
Thank you. Thank you. He never, people just accused, he never said it. All he said is, why are these kids here? That's a valid question.
Mario Mancini, Paul Roman, all these fucking dickheads you talk about, what's the fucking common denominator? They were a bunch of losers who didn't make it in the business who are now trying to get some fucking clout off some bullshit fucking story.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Gerard doesn't know what happened. You know what I do know is that we did research. My wife fucking dug and dug and dug. There was no smoking fucking gun. No one's going to tell me that that woman didn't do more research than anybody else that tried to cover this shit. No smoking gun. The Ring Boy scandal, the most terrifying thing, the horrible thing in the history of wrestling. Not one smoking gun.
Look, here's the deal, guys. Lee Cole is the only one pushing agendas. And it's because he has nothing else to speak about, okay? He's been hanging on this Vince McMahon bullshit forever. And now, after all his stories, Vince is now free. Oh, because Trump is president, right? Now with the whole Mel Phillips thing. Look, dude, Gerard, here's the problem I had with you going on that show.
Yep.
You have been wanting to get on that show since I met you, since the day you got on our show. And I told you, do not do it, because the fact of the matter is, listen, dude, I don't know if Lee Cole's got bots. I don't know. Listen, all I know is no one is subscribing to his channel for 65,000 people. It's some of the worst shit you'd ever listen to. And I'm being 100% honest here, okay? It's a fucking clown show. But the fact of the matter is, I knew when you went on, it would make you look bad. And you know what? I don't know who's watching it, who really watched it, whatever. I'd like to see the comments on that show. But the fact of the matter is,
he got deleted.
He's already got deleted.
But here's the thing. Don't ever do that again without your partner, because he could have, you're in the middle of a crossfire, right? And anybody would be like that. You're like listening and blah, 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 blah. Your partner could have just stopped it. You could have said so much shit to them, they couldn't even answer. They wouldn't be able to answer. The puppet went to jail. These two guys went to jail. I'm sorry, if you go to jail, you're a piece of shit. I'm sorry to say it. That's all I know. You're a piece of shit. You got a problem, right? Most people don't go to jail.
I didn't know that about him.
Both of them have a fucking record.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that about Renee. I didn't know he went to jail before.
What I do know is that he's right. I love that fucking name because I was calling him fucking his butt buddy. But at the end of the day, he's so far up Lee's so far up his ass, he knows what he's had for fucking breakfast. It's
just
horrible.
call him the puppet, man. Just call him the puppet. That's what he is. I can't
even fucking look. I can't listen to them, Gerard. I told you, fucking the gummer. I can't understand a word that comes out of his mouth. He's the mafia guy.
Thank you for mentioning that. So here's this guy with 65,000 views and hundreds of memberships. Now, again, if you know anything about YouTube, right?
Oh yeah.
If you have 65,000 subscribers and you got 100 members at $2 a shot, you should be able to buy a pair of fucking teeth, right? Seriously, it should have been able to have been worked out at this point. Instead, when me and my partner challenged him that we don't believe the bullshit that's going on there, he did a whole entire show on how he uses Google to assist him with his show. And he's such a stupid fuck that you could see that he spends 200 and he makes 100. Like he shows like a screenshot. Now, that's not verbatim, right? I didn't memorize what he posted, but I will tell you, basic math, you could see he was spending more money than he was actually making. Again, I don't believe in people with agendas. And if you're going to do, the comment I put on there was, Renee, if you're going to be an interviewer, interview the man. Stop giving what you think is. Again, I find it odd that Renee said to you, I've been around pedophilia. I know what pedophilia is.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never been around pedophiles. And by the way, Gerard, I don't know if you noticed on that first video when you talked about Mel playing around with their feet, they put a whole thing showing that pedophilia is, with feet.
Yeah, up in the left-hand corner. Yeah.
So if you didn't think they were like ready just to make you, so Lee was friending you to make you fucking look bad. Okay, Lee Cole. I thought Lee Cole was a guy that just wanted to have a good YouTube channel and would do anything he needed to do it. But Lee Cole's turned out to be just not a good human being. And I will tell you, Gerard, I don't really know you that well. We know each other from the show. We've spoke a few times. And the one thing I do know is you like pro wrestling, right? You enjoy pro wrestling and you wanted to be on a podcast, and thank you guys for getting together. You know what I mean? But I do know this. You're a nice guy. That I know. Okay. And I can't sit back when I watch a nice guy get trashed like that. I couldn't. I was fuming. I was so mad at you, dude. You don't even know how mad I was at you.
Listen, Gerard,
I don't ever do podcasts, right? I was fuming at you, man. I just couldn't believe you did it.
I'm not going to sit here.
I'll explain it like this. So I didn't expect to get a friend out of Gerard. I expected I thought he was a victim like everybody else thought, that maybe he was confused and this and that. And after fucking 3 hours of my life that I'll never get back again, I sat there and talked to the guy. I sat here and again, he and I and Chimmel have had conversations and what have you. And Chimmel will tell you he's one of the most fucking down-to-earth, honest, straightforward guys you'll ever meet. And in a business where, I'm not talking about wrestling. I'm talking about podcasting. I'm talking about, reporting and all that. Everybody's a fucking shark. Meltzer can kiss my ass. Anyway, sorry, that's private, personal shit. But Gerard is one of the last decent human beings you will find. And when you let a scumbag like the fucking Gummer and the Puppet treat you that way, I take umbrage with it. I'm a little bit pissed off because he's a dickhead. I don't give a fuck how old he was. I'd push him down the stairs. Sorry. I'm not trying to be violent. He's a fucking dickhead. And he shouldn't have fucking done you like that. Look at all the cuts. It's like botched plastic surgery, that whole fucking video. It's not how
botched plastic surgery is a great way to describe that because, again, there's ways to produce it to make it look cleaner. You could see he was cutting out shit. Look, in this podcasting stuff, right? We're all in it to win it, right? We're all in it to win it with each other.
Mike, can you see that comment?
I couldn't. It was blank. What did it say?
Put it back up.
It's blank on my screen. So if
Lee
someone wants to read it to me.
Lee not wanting to do the show live tells you all you need to know.
Oh, well, that's his deal, right? He doesn't want to do it live because he doesn't want to make himself look stupid either.
Again, and he didn't have the money for a fucking plane ticket or gas money to come down and see you in fucking Fort Worth.
Yeah, please.
He's not going to spend money when he can get you to do it.
And Gerard, you know the story. He wanted to friend you so he could bring you on and try to make you look like shit, and then be like, "Hey, they were trying to make you look like a victim, dude," and that really pissed me off. I am sorry. It wasn't. They're just not good people. Here's the thing. Look, again, if I told Lee a long time ago when I was bringing you on, Gerard, I said, if you're going to do this, Lee, you have to be respectful and you have to not have an agenda. I may not agree with what's going on, but if you're going to take the time to be interviewed by me, I'm going to have no agenda. I'm going to ask hard questions. You're going to give an answer, and I'm not going to sit there and keep browbeating you over your answer. You're giving me your answer. This is not the way. Good.
They want to discredit you because you are the only person that can ruin their fucking case.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I said something, and other people, out of everything that goes on, out of all the ring boys and stuff like that, I've sounded Dan. I don't remember if I told you. All these ring boys can come up. Nobody is going to remember these guys. I don't remember this guy. I don't remember this guy. I don't remember this guy. 33 years after the fact, people still remember me.
So you're the perfect fucking target. That's the thing.
And what I'm saying,
they can tarnish you. They win. They win.
The thing I say about that is, I've never bashed the business. I can say, has Vince always handled himself in the perfect way? No. I can't bash something though I never saw. And for these people, and to have that kind of agenda towards me and stuff like that, and not even listen to the fact, I did see one person put up a comment saying, "You guys are bashing this guy," but he's telling you when he was at the age it was happening, he was only looking at it as a wrestling view. He wasn't even thinking about sexual molestation at that time. And for them to try and get me to change my view of that, my opinion of that, I can't change my view of that because at 15 years old, that's what I thought.
I don't think they were trying to change your opinion, dude. They'd be stupid to think they were going to change it. I just think they wanted to discredit you. Yes. But here's a few things I will say. So this message for Lee Cole, because I know you're watching Lee Cole, right? I know it. Okay, so here's a fact. You're scared of Monty and the Pharaoh. You know you're scared of us. You've reached out to me many times to stop doing videos on you, that you are ruining your business. I will tell you, if you continue to try to embarrass and discredit people, we are going to bury you. I promise you, we will bury you. We will destroy your channel. And you said, Lee, that you had a lawyer waiting. You said it on your show, and that you were going to come after us because it's your business and we're destroying your business. I wrote you an email. I said, show me, challenge me. I dare you. Get your fucking lawyer. But I will challenge you to this, Lee. Come on with me, Jimmy, these two gentlemen here. Bring on the puppet. Bring on Mario Mancini and whoever else you can beg to come on, because Mario Mancini is about the only guy you'll be able to get on. And then really debate the situation. And let's see what you got to say. What's that?
I worked there with Mario. I was in the building the night he started when he wrestled Taker. I was there.
So I'm gonna ask you a question. So you knew Mario Mancini. If a woman came up to you or either one of you and said, "Hey, I was raped, but please don't say anything."
Oh no, to be fair, they were trying to say that he was in the fucking car, basically, that he had seen it. So
from the story I heard, because she reached out to us and she told us to mind our own business, and she told him not to say anything. Well, I'm sorry. Once you tell me that a crime has been committed, a crime, you said rape, you have a responsibility to report it. In fact, I even challenged the fact that Mario Mancini should be brought up on charges, because if Rita Charlton was
aiding and
raped,
abetting.
but here's the thing: if she was raped, it could have been stopped right there if Vince McMahon was doing all this stuff, and all this stuff that everybody talks about would be over. He would be in jail. And Vince McMahon says it on his documentary.
Me and Gerard argue all the time about Vince because I'm not a fan of Vince. I don't agree with a lot of the stances he's taken and the way he's handled shit. He still hasn't gone to jail for anything. Still hasn't been convicted of shit. I'm not going to sit there and say the guy needs to go to jail. I just think he's a fucking dickhead. That's my opinion.
You don't like him.
Yeah, I just don't like him.
That's fine.
But
that's fine.
Think about it like this. Rita Chatterton claims she was raped in what year? Was it 85 or 86?
I don't know.
Well, what did you also said, Gerard? She said that she was trying that Vince offered her Hulk Hogan money.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan, $500,000 for okay. My thing about that is this: it was either 85.
Wait a minute, can I just interrupt there? He might have, if he wanted to get laid.
That was.
So
I
what?
was just gonna say that, and she may have bought it. A guy will say anything to get in her
Thank you.
pants.
Right.
Thank
so
you.
85
Thank
or
you.
86 when that happened. Mario Mancini, Undertaker debuted November 19th, 1990. So you're talking 4 years minimum. You're going to tell me, Mario, in the minimum of 4 years, at least that I know of, you couldn't have said nothing to nobody? You couldn't have said nothing to back up her claim to nobody? Because he was a glorified jobber making $150 every 3 weeks to come and get his ass kicked by whoever they put him in the ring against. Was the $150 every 3 weeks really worth your integrity of watching
Can I give you my ultimate problem with that? Maybe Mario Mancini wanted to be a great wrestler, so he was afraid to say something. I get it, right? So you were afraid back then. You were scared. You wanted to be a wrestler, okay? Then shut the fuck up in 2023, 24, and 25 about
you
Vince
buried it
McMahon
back
and
then.
everything
Keep
else.
it buried.
That's right. Shut up. You lost all credibility. Shut the fuck up. That is it. Done.
Was $150 every 3 weeks really worth your integrity, worth your morals?
I guess it was. But you know what? Then don't talk about Vince McMahon and don't talk about anybody else. You have no credibility. That is all.
You took, as you said earlier, Monty. He took the money.
Fucking jobbers who are coming out after all this time because they have no fucking claim to fame, nothing to hold them fucking back. They missed the spotlight they once had. So let's talk shit about stuff we know nothing about.
No, he said it perfectly earlier. Mario Mancini took the money, and when the money dried up, he said, "Oh, now I'm going to say something."
No. You know, I know why Mario Mancini was doing this, because they're doing a special on Vince McMahon, which we were asked to be part of, and he's part of it. And that way, whatever, dude. I don't listen. I just don't like bullshitters. I don't like people. You know what? You come straight up. You ask questions. You treat it like the way it is, and that is all. And again, the real only fact that remains here is Lee Cole is the only one that has proof of conviction for kidnapping. Nobody else does. Nobody. Not anybody in this chat.
Right. Who the fuck is Lee? See, here's the thing. Me and Gerard do this. We don't make a dime on this shit. We do it for fun. So this is his life. This is Lee's fucking life, because he's that fucking pitiful of a human being that he has nothing else but that fucking screen and the fucking puppet. I don't need this shit. I want to fuck with Gerard regardless, and we're going to do a fucking podcast. We've been talking about WrestleMania for the last 4 weeks. We actually legitimately like wrestling, as you do too, Monty. You like fucking wrestling. You see it when I watch anything you've done. You're a legitimate fan of the fucking business. You're not here to get one.
And I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I am not in the business. I am not in the business.
Exactly. And neither was he. His brother was in there for a cup of coffee and has been riding that shit ever since.
Wait, I'm sorry. Because you set up some rings does not put you in the fucking business. You know what? I'm sorry. And Gerard, I hope that's not insulting you either. You're not in the business, okay?
Well, Tom, listen, I can honestly say Tom worked for the business, okay?
Why? Because he set up rings?
No, I'm saying for the couple of years he was there, okay?
He set up rings.
Okay. Now
he's not in the business.
Okay. Now, being in the business part of it, the business part of it, I told you I worked there for 2 years. I walked away voluntarily, and then a couple of years after that, I did an amazing amount of house shows, independent shows. But the one thing I learned in all that time, you don't shit where you eat. You just don't do it.
Even more so, fucking Gerard, you were doing ref work. You were actually involved. You were inside the ring during matches doing the 1, 2, 3. All that motherfucker did is took a sloppy bump one time, and he looked like he shit himself.
I don't know if you ever saw that. Mike. We actually
No,
put up.
you know what? I don't. Again, I find, listen. I'm humbled by the audience that myself and the Pharaoh get. I'm appreciative towards it. The one thing we do know, or at least the one thing I know about myself, I am no wrestling expert. But I can interview, and I know what questions to ask, and I'm going to interview people that I'm going to interview anyone, and I'm going to ask the questions I want to know and what I think the people. I don't want to hear about arm bars and fucking wrist locks and what you did at WrestleMania 5. I could give a shit. Okay,
I see
there's
a lot
enough
of
of
times
those
when you're
shows.
interviewing somebody, though. I'll see a lot of times when you're interviewing somebody, if it's the right person you're interviewing, the fan in you comes out.
That's the point.
No, I'm saying you can see the fan in you coming out. It's like,
well, of course, because I grew up on this stuff,
right,
dude.
Gerard.
Yeah. If Bob Backlund is in my studio, dude, it's Bob Backlund, man. What am I going to do? It's fucking Bob Backlund.
Gerard, when I interviewed you like a fucking fan because I wanted the information for the fucking what we did on the documentary. When I interviewed Raven, I was marking the fuck out because that was my guy back in the day. When I interviewed Sabu, I was terrified of him as a kid. So I came and approached it as a fucking fan. I didn't ask him, so what was it like to do the armbar? What was it like for the Sheik to train you? No, I asked him, hey, dude, when you did that show with Rey Mysterio, did that fucking hurt? That was fucking awesome.
He talked to Tony Chimmel the first time for 5 minutes, Mike. I remember the first time I got him on the phone with Chimmel. Now, he marked out for Chimmel.
I did not mark out for Chimmel. Chimmel told me to go fuck myself, and I was like, Chimmel's a fucking dick.
Listen, here's the one thing I learned quickly, okay? And we just did a couple of shows back. They're not wrestlers are not your friends, man. Whether you think they are, they ain't. They will work you for your last penny.
I've said to him before, when you work in the wrestling business, don't become one of the boys. Let the boys make you become one of them. When you try to become one of them, you go down that road with them. Let them bring you into their world. Don't force yourself into their world.
Gerard, I kind of think when you look throughout your life and working with these guys, you hold them to, you guys are friends, whatever else or whatever. Through what I've experienced, right? We're not friends, right? No. It's business.
Yes.
And and again, I've had wrestlers say, I do have some wrestling friends, right? That I speak to often, okay? But in the reality of it, look, I speak to Marty Jannetty every other day, If I needed $100 from Marty Jannetty, you think he's sending me $100?
No.
There's no chance in hell.
That's why I said they're always going to be, the boys are always going to be the boys. If they bring you into
that's what I'm saying. If you become one of the boys, what does that mean? What does that even mean? I don't even know what that means.
What I'm saying is, if they accept you as part of their world, they're only accepting you to be around a small part of it. Don't go out trying to.
You and I talk about kayfabe all the time, and how it's dead and shit, and it's fine. But I like the idea that they're them, and I'm me. I don't want to be part of their fucking world because all I've seen in their world is a bunch of bullshit and lies. Now I can like being a fan, and I'd like to continue being a fan. That's why, like, if I talk to an indie star, I enjoy that because they're still fresh. They haven't been fucked over yet. So when I talk to a wrestler, I understand there's fucking 15 degrees of separation. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to them because I'm enjoying the conversation because I'm getting an enlightenment that I didn't have before. But I never at any point in time think that we're buddies. No, I have some of the wrestlers' numbers still. I don't call them up and go, hey, bro, I'm going there. Can I get some tickets to this or that? No, because it's not like that. It was a professional courtesy. That was it. And I keep it that way. It's all business. You, on the other hand, are my friend. So when some dipshit comes out trying to make you look bad and his fucking little puppet friend, I'm going to take it a certain kind of way. Mm-hmm. And I'm still taking a certain kind of way. Monty.
And by the way, I don't mean to interrupt. By the way, those two would never have the balls to go with both of you guys. Never.
No,
ever.
Because Gerard's nice. But say what you want. He's not a pushover, but he's nice. I'm a dick. And I know that. I know that I'm a dick. I don't like people. So when I say I like Gerard, that means something. Actually, my wife will come and tell you, I can count the number of friends I have in the world on one hand and still have fingers.
Yeah.
That's just how I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like the way they did you. And I guess a part 2 is supposed to come out or whatever. I'm not going to watch it. I'm sure she'll tell me about it. I'm sure Monty will have something to say about it.
I'm going to watch it. I got to watch it.
I don't know if it's going to come out now.
Oh no, it'll come out. And you know what? They'll do a show. They'll do a show on this, and then they'll try to, challenge everything we're saying. And again, I don't give a shit. I will tell you this: Monty and Farrah will do their best to destroy Lee Cole's channel. We will do our best.
I salute you for that shit. Fuck that guy.
And I will tell you this: Lee said to me numerous times, the reason he doesn't go live when he has a wrestler on because he's afraid. Because I will make phone calls. If I know he's going to have Rob Van Dam in, I will call Rob Van Dam.
What do you think about him going to WrestleMania?
Whatever. You know what? He's trying to promote his show. He's trying to do the best he can. I should do more of that. I have no problem with people promoting their shows and doing whatever. And if you want to do a show that Vince McMahon is a piece of shit and Mel Phillips is a piece of shit, go ahead and do it. But when you start bringing in people trying to discredit people, okay, that's why it's like you're going beyond the norm. If you're going to, like I said, if you're going to take the time out to interview someone, be a fucking interviewer. Don't be a fucking idiot, okay? And he's an idiot. And you notice Lee was playing like, I brought Renee on because he doesn't have, any personal feelings about this. What are you kidding me? What are we stupid here?
The same guy who said that rolling with fucking Lee Cole was the greatest experience in his life, better than having fucking children. My ass, that fucking yes, sir.
I only wanted to say one thing. I understand from Gerard's perspective why he went and what his mission has been to this point. I don't agree that I wasn't happy he did it either, but I understand. The second thing I wanted to say was what I heard in that part 1, when he said he didn't witness any abuse, they tried to strong arm him and say, "Oh, but yes, you did," because blah blah blah. Playing with feet, Indian wrestling on the floor. That's even a term you can use anymore. I don't even know if it's politically correct. But that was wrestling, and they were in a wrestling world.
You wasn't just have a soft spot for Gerard.
Whatever. So, but there was no, to your point earlier, when you hear Ring Boy sex scandal, you anticipate finding descriptions of actual traditional, to quote Vince's lawyer, SA. There was none at that point, right? So Gerard didn't witness any of that because none of those claims came out. The P. Diddy-esque type claims we're hearing now 6 months ago. None of that was ever discussed. So no, right. Gerard didn't witness any of that because it was never discussed. It was never brought up.
Well, stay on here for a second because that's a great example you brought up. P. Diddy now is in jail, and he's probably going to go to jail for life. Vince McMahon was also in that same time. Vince McMahon is free doing whatever he wants. Yep. So if you're going to tell me that Vince McMahon had more power than P. Diddy, I don't think so. P. Diddy's one of the most powerful people in the world. Here is my other concern, Gerard. Again, my concern is they were going to try to bait you and try to say that you were having an affair with Mel.
Yes.
And that was really bothering me because I felt like it was coming and I didn't know how you were going to defend that. And that's why I was like, what are you doing on this show?
And like I've said to him, Mike, I know from watching you and stuff like that, you and Jimmy have a really tight bond on your show. Means you must be gay.
Could be.
And when I said
I'm not confirming or denying.
You're denying anything.
All right, I'm not. I'm not.
But what I said to him is, the Big Brother Big Sister organization should just be shut down. It should just be shut down, put down, because a grown man having an interest in kids to get them to be better in life.
No, here's a problem. Boy Scouts is next.
Gerard, here's the problem. You went on that show looking to have a discussion. They went on that show to make you look like shit. And there's the difference. And you were not prepared for that. Okay, that's the problem I had.
Save that comment for what you just said.
What's that?
Think about what you just said.
Okay.
I went on to have a discussion. They went on to make me
again,
look like
but
shit.
you knew that. You look, you're too
Right.
nice to a guy for your own fucking good sometimes.
Yeah.
You were gonna take this dickhead to Cattleman Steakhouse.
I wasn't gonna take him there. That's where we're gonna meet.
Whatever the case,
That's
but
right.
the partner's right there telling you.
Yeah.
You were going into enemy territory without a rifle, dude.
And
Like you were
knew-
not
look,
prepared.
You didn't tell me about this. I'm gonna say it straight. You didn't tell me you were going on that show because you knew I would have tried to talk you out of it.
Or you should have said, I'm going to go on with
Oh
you.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And at that point, they would have said, no, we're not doing it. I guarantee it.
A lot of because he told me he doesn't do live shows no more, and I got to go live. 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 It'd been 8 months in the making. I got to go live, and this all came about Thursday because we didn't get together in Dallas. And he goes, "Hey, sorry I couldn't get together and stuff like that. Can we do a show?" I said, "You know what,
Gerard, you've been biting at the bit to go on that show for the longest time.
I was giving up on it. I was giving up.
But you've been waiting
You
and
came-
waiting.
you came
Look, I
to
yelled
tell
at you when you were engaging with them. I saw you on the show. I go on the show to see what stupid shit he's going to say so I can make him look like a shithead, right? But you were on there like being friendly, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Remember, I wrote you. I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you
She
doing?"
tells me what they say on there, so I don't have to listen to his stupid ass.
So-
But
That's what the Pharaoh says. Pharaoh's like, I want nothing to do with these guys. Why do you waste your time? You're punching
until a
down.
couple
You're
weeks
Pharaoh's a
ago-
smart guy because they're like, I can't listen to his fucking voice for more than 3 seconds where I want to fucking just take a tack hammer to my head.
Up until a couple weeks ago, we had actually no content and stuff like that, and then he emails me again. Most of the time, I hear from his show from John. That's who I hear from about his show from. And John would get on there, release talking about this, that, and the other thing again. I said, "John, why do you let it get to you so much?" It's like,
John's a
I stopped
passionate guy.
watching.
John's a passionate guy and he's a very colorful guy, but
I stopped
don't
watching.
let John.
I just stopped watching. I stopped listening. I stopped watching because it's the same. If you missed one of his shows, you don't have to worry because it's a regurgitation of every show's a regurgitation of something before. But I figured
like I said, I don't know if he's got bots or what's going on. He gives everybody a wrench. I have no idea what's going on there. But here's the thing. You know how it is out there, right? You don't look, if you really cared about Mel's legacy and you really care about it, you should have thought this out better, because coming out of that interview, if there was 100 people actually paying attention, I would say all 100 would think that Mel was guilty coming out of that interview. I'm just being honest with you. As a fan, if I didn't know shit, I'd be like, Mel is a pedophile. That's how I felt from that interview. May I ask your wife, how did you feel from that? How did you feel listening to that?
I hated it. I mean, I felt like they were ganging up, and you could see the cuts from the very beginning. And I can't say I was surprised by the way that it was executed and put up. It's a complete attempt of character assassination because he is the only person who can dispute what happened. I get why he went. I get why talking to Lee was important to him and putting it out there because he does care, because this is important to him, because this was his friend. I don't agree with it because we know who he is. We knew how it was going to go down, but I understand the motivation. But they did him dirty. And depending on how they watch tonight, part 2 and part 3, it could be worse. I don't think that he has the integrity to go, okay, well, we'll just leave the rest of it as is. We've already done our damage. I think he's going to go for his pound of flesh.
Especially when, Gerard, we have done so much good work as far as showing the other side of Mel, that that y'all see this, but when we were looking into Mel, you showed us this. You gave him credibility to the idea that this is a fucking human being that was trashed and basically was a scapegoat for a bunch of bullshit.
We haven't discussed it publicly, Gerard, but you're the reason our video is private, right? So we went into that with an idea of what we thought the situation was, and all the documentation appeared to back up. Documentation from the FBI, documentation from interviews and Donahue, and all of it put together built the case that we all had the same opinion, because there was no counter, and you have been the counter.
You convinced
Because
me.
of that, I took it out. It's private because there's more to the story than that. We finally have another side to present. And when this is all said and done, whether this case in Maryland goes bust or they take it to the finish line, however it ends up, I think it needs to be redone and reflect this entire narrative and all of the people now out of the woodwork that my soda tasted like all these allegations that were never discussed. All this needs to be presented.
Mike, I got a question for you.
Good.
Do you know for any fact that he has anything to do with the Ring Boy scandal?
Then who does?
Lee?
No, he was a brother of a guy who worked.
No, I'm talking about when I say anything to do, I'm talking about with
case?
these so-called victims coming forward.
I don't believe a thing Lee says. He always has these secret things that he can't reveal.
Oh,
you know why he can't reveal them? Because it's not going to happen. You know, I am telling you, anyone listening to this show right now, Lee Cole told me, if not once, 1,000 times, that Vince McMahon was they were raiding his house in October. He was interviewed by the FBI, and Vince McMahon was going to be carted in. And they gave me a date. And the minute the date came, I wrote him, I go, what happened? And then he goes, oh, it's another week. What happened? What happened? Here's my biggest concern. I will say it again. You guys have information. I don't. I don't know. I don't know what Mel Phillips did or didn't do, but I will say this. A man's legacy might have been destroyed over a bunch of wrestling the boys making jokes about whatever was going on, whether it was just a guy who liked kids and wanted to take care of kids. And now it's gone so awry. That guy's legacy is destroyed no matter what. And when a guy like Lee Cole continues to go on the internet talking this shit about him, Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin, you know, on and on and on, it's disgraceful and it's terrible. And I would tell you this: if Mel Phillips was my father or my brother or my uncle, and I knew he didn't do anything, I would be really upset about what's going on.
Oh, they are.
I will leave this last thing that did stick with me on the Netflix. And by the way, I am a Vince McMahon guy. I grew up. I loved the way he handled business, and I loved the way he handled his independent contractors. Right? Mm-hmm. He always took care of them, but they weren't going to shit on him, and he would shit on them first.
And Mike, I don't know if you ever know because of that. I said to him before, because I've been in Vince's office, a pen and a contract and a telephone used to be the only thing on that man's desk. And most of the time, the contract was never signed. It was a handshake. That was your signature, because that's the way he did business.
Well, that was also the way they did business back then, too, right?
Business.
So, but the point I was going to say on the documentary, it was pretty telling. Bruce Pritchard did say that Pat Patterson was not involved. The other two, no comment.
You can't speak for him.
Right. Well, he didn't say that. He said no comment. And if you're watching it, it was like he thought they were guilty. I'm just telling you, as a fan watching stuff, just like I was saying, as a fan watching that show on you, you know, I knew better because I know you. I don't know Mel Phillips. I don't have, you guys have all this information. I don't know. I interviewed you. I interviewed Lee Cole. I know nothing else.
What you just said is the same thing I told him. I said, Gerard, because you make such compelling arguments, and this person, he and I personally talking, I went into this 100% believing that this was who Mel was. This is a monster. This is this, and this. Because your conviction and because you are an honest, good man, I believe that this is worth looking into. And if I find out down the road that Mel was this and he was this horrible thing, fine. We have that closure. But I'm willing to look at it a different way because of you. That's what you bring to this, Gerard. You are such a good person, an honest person, that you make people go, you know what? Maybe this is worth a second chance. And what that dickhead did was he tried to tarnish that.
Yes.
You are so valuable to this that look, had you swung over there on that side, had you said, yes, this happened, it would have been a slam dunk. nobody would have questioned it because you're the only one left. That's how valuable you are. Say what you want. He's a fucking dumbass, but the dumbass, look, a clock is right twice a day. That motherfucker got you. And it sucks. But it doesn't have to stay like that.
I have a funny feeling Mike's going to make sure it doesn't.
That I can promise you, I will.
And I'm hoping that the information I gave you helps you out a lot in your journey. When you look at it as a whole, I'm hoping there's some stuff you can find in there and be able to use it. And
I just want to say this. I'm gonna check out, but I want to say thank you guys for allowing me to come on your show. I know you guys had a lot to do today, and you probably didn't want to have to talk about this. So allowing me to come on and discuss it with you guys and get out my feelings. And again, much respect to you, Gerard. Much respect to both of you.
I'm glad you did it right away. Well,
dude, the minute I saw it, I was at the gym. I watched all 34 minutes and I wanted to jump through the phone. I was going to call you, scream at you. And then I was like, you know what? And then I wrote you guys and said, let me on the show. Don't tell Gerard because I'm going to friggin' attack him. I'm gonna yell at him.
Right? You're not going to attack any more than I have. So
exactly. But much respect. And the fact that all of you stand by, who's right, it's what's right. And that's the secret here. Not who's right, but what's right. And guys like Lee Cole, payback's a bitch. And you know what? Payback's coming. I'm telling you right now. That's all I got to say. But thank you guys. God bless. And
thank you very much.
Wishing you a wonderful week. Be well.
Too. All right. Whew. Do we continue with the rest of our regularly scheduled program?
Well, we might want to pick it up on the next one, but
all right.
Because that was kind of heavy for everything, and I didn't plan on talking about that. You brought that to me literally, this morning?
Oh no, this afternoon. Yesterday afternoon.
Whatever. I was fucking. I thought about it last night. But isn't that the thing? Like Monty makes
half incoherent, so
days run together for me. But people care about you. I don't know if you realize that. Leland, who's always here, cares about you. Fucking Jacob, who's sick, cares about you. My wife, who you met, who we went all out together, cares about you. I care about you. You're my friend. And when some dipshit comes along who doesn't know his ass from his elbow and tries to make someone who I respect look stupid, it bothers me. You said it yourself earlier when you talked on the phone. I will run through a fucking brick wall for the people I care about. Motherfucker, I'm going to run through a brick wall if I have to make sure you're okay. Because you're my friend. I didn't know that fucking way back when, after we had 3-hour conversations. Again, never going to get that time back. You took 3 hours of my life. I'll never get back. But I'm grateful every day for that conversation. I'm grateful every day because we do a podcast with a guy who deserves it, like Jacob, and how you have been a mentor to Jacob and to me, and you've showed us so much, and we've experienced so much. How I got to fucking mark out and think that Tony Chimmel was a dickhead because of the shit you did. How that logo that's on your shirt right now, I got to make that for him. How I got to make us three on a fucking podcast logo. How much you have been invaluable to this. And for some guy who doesn't know you, who faked the funk and came over here and talked all his, game, who only has one intention, and that's to make fucking dollars and cents, fuck you over? I can't stand for that. And I won't. And to Lee, karma's a bitch. It may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. But you're going to get yours. And it won't be by me. And it won't be by Gerard, because Gerard's not that low. But somebody's going to get you for your shit. It's going to happen.
What's that saying? You going to get got?
Something like that.
Something like that. Well, I will say, I'll take my hat off to Monty. for the passion that he showed coming on. Much appreciative. And I'm hoping that the future of this goes in a certain way to where it dies away because of certain individuals being able to win the case.
Don't say too much because he doesn't need to know everything.
And when it does go away, or if it does go away, the people who are on the other side of good would not be able to jump over that fence. Oh, I lost this over here. I'm going to jump to this side over here.
No, fuck that.
No, that fence is going to be built 30 feet high. You know, you ain't going to have a chance in hell of getting over that fence.
What I do know is this. We'll be here next Sunday doing the same shit we do every Sunday.
But wait a minute. We still got 4 to go.
We can do that next week.
No, because next week we'll already be at 41.
Damn it, we're going to do it next week. We're already fucking...
We have 15 minutes. We can do 4 more in 15 minutes.
Fine. All right.
Okay.
But hold on. I have a boss. I answer to her. She has the final say.
It's fine.
Okay, let's go.
37, night 1, Raymond James Stadium. 25,000 people in the building were coming back from COVID. Okay. WWE title match Saturday night. Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley with MVP. Lashley keeps the title. After that, we get to the women's #1 tag team contender tag team turmoil match. Natalya and Tamina versus Billie Kay and Carmella versus Lana and Naomi versus Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose versus the Riot Squad, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott. I think this was a brutal match if I remember right.
It was a botch fest.
Oh, yeah. Then after that, you had a singles match of Seth Rollins and Cesaro. I think we went swinging.
Well, I know that this particular WrestleMania wasn't anything to write home about. They were still in that transitional period.
Yes.
You know, stuff was going on. This is
the crowd was rowdy. One of these nights, it was raining, and they actually had to pause the show.
Yeah, and then one of the girls slipped down the fucking
They didn't pull a Titus O'Neil, though.
No. World Slide?
The New Day, the WWE Raw Tag Team title match, The New Day versus AJ Styles and Omos. AJ Styles and Omos won, becoming new champs.
Yeah.
Cage match, Shane McMahon versus Braun Strowman. Now, Shane had Jackson, Riker, and Elias. And Braun Strowman, I think that was was that a...
Shane was the slimy heel.
Yeah. Tag team match after that. Morrison and The Miz versus Damian Priest and Bad Bunny. I think that's what they needed to do to get the show over.
Yeah.
And then you had the SmackDown Women's title match with the crying going on in the middle of the ring. Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair.
Which I thought was a great match because Bianca Belair made it a great match.
It was to me, the hype for the match was better than the match itself.
Absolutely. But it was a passable match because of Bianca.
Now, night 2, you had The Fiend with Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton.
Which, again, made no fucking sense how what happened. It was weird, you know. Yeah.
Then you had a women's tag title match, Natalya and Tamina versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. That was a squash fest.
Yeah. And this was getting reminded, this is the first time they had fans in the arena.
Then you had Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, but Sami Zayn had Logan Paul in his corner.
Yes, this was a conspiracy theory, and fucking Logan or fucking KO was trying to beat the fucking stupid out of him.
Then we had a United States title match with Sheamus versus Riddle, which Sheamus won.
Yeah, and Riddle wasn't going anywhere.
Then you had a Nigerian drum fight, Apollo Crews versus Big E for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, when they tried to make him fucking talk with an accent, it was Yeah, he was wearing the white and green gear. It just wasn't.
Then you had Asuka versus Rhea Ripley.
Wasn't a bad match. It was not a bad match.
Rhea won the title.
Yeah.
And then, of course, to end the night, you had the Universal Triple Threat match: Daniel Bryan, Edge, Roman Reigns.
And this is when we're in the middle of, this is the first WrestleMania to start the Roman fucking run.
Yep. The Roman Empire. Now we're at 38. AT&T Stadium again. Funny. 6 years earlier, they put 100,000 people in this building. This time, 65,000.
Well, to be fair, we're also talking about 2 years after COVID. We're also talking about the fact that, look, AEW, they filled Wembley with 70 or 80 or whatever it was, and they could barely get 50 the next year. So,
well, it is the building behind me. There you go.
hey.
SmackDown Tag Team title match: the Usos versus the name's Rick Boogs.
I like Rick Boogs, man. But he threw his back out in this match.
Right. Shinsuke Nakamura. Listen, I will say this. I used to get excited when I would see Shinsuke come out and Pat McAfee be on the desk doing the guitar riffs and stuff like that.
I like that he had his own guitarist. I thought that was a slick-ass gimmick. Rick Boogs.
And then you had Happy Corbin with Madcap Moss versus Drew McIntyre.
Again, Happy Corbin was a great gimmick.
Yep. Then you had the Mysterios versus Logan Paul and The Miz. Logan Paul and The Miz won.
Yes, and here's the thing. Logan Paul in that match, this is the first time I said it, he did a frog splash, and it looked just like Art Barr.
And isn't this a turn? Dominic turned on Ray?
No. That was your...
Okay. Women's Raw title match. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Bianca goes over.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be 2 WrestleManias in a row she went over.
Because she beat her at SummerSlam, like they squashed her. This is her getting her get back.
And then you had a singles match, which Seth Rollins versus the returning Cody Rhodes.
Great build for this.
Oh, yeah.
It was like one of the worst kept secrets. We knew Cody Rhodes was leaving AEW.
Then you had Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair, which...
It should have been a bigger deal, but it wasn't.
Oh, yeah. And then for the no-holds-barred match, you had Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold. I appreciate the fact Stone Cold came out
better than what it should have been.
Yeah.
But that it had the Rock Hogan feel to it. The match was horrible, but because of who was in it,
the promos leading up to this match.
Yes.
Oh. And then the next night, you had the Raw Tag Team Title Triple Threat, where you had the Street Profits versus the Alpha Academy versus RK Bro. Randy and Riddle kept the titles.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had Omos and Bobby Lashley.
Which I'm glad that Bobby won this match because they were on a downward turn and they were trying to make Bobby a face.
Then you had a match where, how can I say, on paper it was supposed to have been the shits, but it ended up being very entertaining. Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville.
Yes, it was one of Sammy's finest works.
Oh, yes. Johnny Knoxville doing some of the stupid stuff he did in that match.
And
I was
it
like,
worked.
wow.
The fucking glove.
Yes. The women's tag team title fatal 4-way, Carmella and Queen Zelina versus Natalya and Shayna Baszler versus Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley and Naomi and Sasha Banks. They win the titles.
And not too long after that, they drop them off of the desk.
They're out the door. Singles match, AJ Styles versus Edge. That was a very good match.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get to, what the heck? A tag team match. The New Day versus Ridge Holland and Sheamus with Butch. I don't remember that match that much. I don't think
all I remember from Ridge Holland is that he's the one who took Big E out. Yes, it was an accident, but he is responsible for breaking his neck.
Then you have Austin Theory with Mr. McMahon versus Pat McAfee.
Yeah, this was the last year that we had to deal with fucking Vince as far as the card goes.
So Pat McAfee goes over.
Yes, and then Steve Austin
comes fight Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, and then Austin comes out, stuns everybody, and they all drink beer.
Yep. No, Mr. McMahon wins the match, right? And then you have the unification winner takes all match. Roman Reigns with the Bloodline versus Brock Lesnar.
So I'll say this: the match didn't quite I understood what they were
Another
doing.
one live up to the hype.
We knew who was going to win. There was no way around it. We knew who was going to win. They kind of fucked Bobby Lashley to get him the title, but we knew who was going to win.
Now we go to WrestleMania 39, Inglewood, California, SoFi Stadium.
WrestleMania goes Hollywood again.
Night 1, John Cena versus Austin Theory, United States title match.
It did not get over the guy that was meant to get over. It was meant to get Austin Theory over. It did not do that. In fact, Austin Theory has not looked good since.
Because he was a corporate puppet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like another puppet we know.
Fatal 4-way tag team match. Braun Strowman and Ricochet versus the Viking Raiders versus the Alpha Academy versus the Street Profits. The Street Profits won.
Yeah, I think that Braun Strowman and Ricochet was an underrated tag team, but they were both kind of in that holding pattern at that point.
It's funny how the Viking Raiders, the only one basically still tag. The Street Profits, the Street Profits.
But the Viking Raiders, I think, have gotten better since then.
It's funny. The only one not still there is Ricochet. Then you got.
I hear he's doing his best promo work now.
Yeah. You got Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins, which
great match.
Very good match.
Yeah, Logan Paul, for everyone that hates his ass and shit, he's a damn good wrestler.
Then you had Damage Control with Becky Lynch, Lita, and Trish Stratus.
That was a novelty. That was a novelty match, if anything. Yes.
You had Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio.
Which the build up to that was great, and it was probably one of the better fucking relative matches.
Can you believe it's been still 2 years? Holy smokes! Then the SmackDown Women's Title match: Charlotte versus Rhea. Rhea going over for
went over in that one.
Yep. And then you had The Miz versus Pat McAfee. It's coming out, and then I am going to say you have probably one of the greatest tag team matches to end a night of WrestleMania ever. The Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
The emotion built into that only because it was the end of that arc of the Bloodline story.
Absolutely. Now we go to night 2, where the first match of the night 2 was Omos versus Brock Lesnar. He's making a habit of getting squashed the first match.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Fatal 4-way tag match, you had Natalya and Shotzi versus Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. I think they did that for Ronda because she was in her hometown.
Well, I also think that Ronda was, they were trying to hold
on the way out the door, wasn't she?
She was getting to that point, yeah.
Intercontinental triple threat match: Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, and Gunther. We know the results of this.
Yeah, and that was a hell of a match too. That was
that was a chop fest, wasn't it?
That was a beating. They took everything they did from Sheamus and Gunther and made it better by adding McIntyre.
WWE Raw Women's Title match: Asuka versus Bianca Belair.
Yeah,
Bianca goes over.
Mm-hmm.
Another good match.
I think the next match, Asuka gets the belt off for her.
Now the next match, somebody went to go get into the ring, makes one move, and blows out both his quads. So the Miz versus Snoop Dogg, that match reminded me a lot of the ending of the Steve Austin Owen Hart match where Austin got dunked on his head.
Well, I mean, like father, like son. He blows out both quads. What the fuck?
Then you go to Hell in a Cell, Finn Balor versus Edge.
A waste of the demon.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Then you get a WWE title, WWE Universal title match. Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes, number 1.
I remember me and my wife watching this, and I was like, that's it. I'm fucking done. You had little Brody there from AEW. You had all kinds of people there. We were expecting a title change. Yep. Little did I know it would start off a fucking effect that none of us could see. And this is when I realized that Paul Levesque knew what the fuck he was doing.
Oh, yeah. And now we're finally at WrestleMania 40. Philadelphia, last year. Night 1, Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley. Rhea retains the title.
Absolutely. Right woman won. She had a hell of an entrance, and they were freezing her balls off there.
Oh, absolutely. And then the WWE Raw Tag Team title, WWE SmackDown title, 6-pack ladder match.
Mm-hmm.
The Judgment Day versus Awesome Truth versus DIY versus The New Day versus A-Town Down and versus the New Catch Republic, which is Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. A-Town Down wins the titles.
And
A-Town Down Under, sorry.
There was two winners.
A-Town Down Under.
And there was two winners because the other belts were taken by somebody else.
Then it goes to a tag team title match where you have Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar versus Andrade and Rey Mysterio. Andrade and Rey Mysterio won that match. Who won the other one?
I believe it was Judgment Day.
Yeah, you're right. The six-pack ladder. Only this is one winner. Then you had a singles match of Jimmy Uso versus Jey Uso,
which was the fucking dribbling shits.
Yes,
it should have been better. They're both talented and they have great chemistry. I just
that is the epitome of we're great together and we suck separately.
Yeah, and the thing was that was supposed to be like a Bret Hart Owen Hart match, and it did not live up to the hype.
And then you had a six-man tag match, which was a six-woman tag match, should have been. Damage Control, again, versus Bianca, Jade Cargill, and Naomi. All I got to say is those three, the way they came out.
Yes.
If you could win a match on your look, that match was over just on the way they looked. Because they came out stunning. Next, you had the Intercontinental title match. This match was Sami Zayn over Gunther. That match was incredible.
It was. I don't think it should have been Sammy. I thought it should have been somebody else. But yeah, it was a good match.
Then you had Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus the Bloodline,
which we knew who was going to win this match. I mean, it was pretty much set up for them to fucking lose. And again, it told the story it needed to.
And then we get to night 2 of WrestleMania 40. In the start of the night, you had Drew McIntyre taking the World Heavyweight title off of Seth Rollins.
Just to lose it to fucking...
It was a cash-in by Damian Priest, and he cashes it right in.
And God, if you say that we need a Money in the Bank thing right now, I'm going to throw something
at you. 5 minutes and 11 seconds?
Yeah.
Something like that. He lost that thing quicker than the Sheik. Then we go to a six-man tag team Philadelphia street fight. Special referee Bubba Ray Dudley. The Pride, Angelo Dawkins, Bobby Lashley, and Montez Ford with B-Fab versus the Final Testament, Akam, Karrion Kross, and Reza with Paul Ellering and Skull. Okay, I know. What was the name? I'm trying to think of the name of that team. Akeem and Reza. What were they called?
AOP, Authors of Pain.
The Pride ended up winning that.
Akam and Reza.
Yeah, not a
key to the African Dream. It was Akam.
Correct. Then you had a singles match, which I thought was a very good match. AJ Styles versus LA Knight.
Yeah, this is when LA Knight's trajectory was just kept growing and growing. Yep.
Then you had the United States Triple Threat match: Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, Logan Paul.
Paul walked out of there with that. Oh. God, it was a doubt. I mean, those three just fucking killed it.
Yes, they did. Women's title match: Io Sky versus Bayley. Bayley took the title.
Which, again, that was another good program as the fall of Damage Control as far as Bayley was concerned.
Then we get to the main event of WrestleMania 40. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes in the Bloodline Rules match.
The only thing that would have made this match better is if it wasn't The Undertaker that came out, it was Steve Austin.
Correct. And all I got to say is this. After 40 WrestleManias, 4 weeks, and I feel about 3 years older just because I can't believe we are at WrestleMania 41. Dan, unfortunately for you, you have not been alive for all of that.
No.
You calling me the old bastard that I am? I have been alive for all.
I will tell you this. I can remember the first WrestleMania I watched with my dad. It was WrestleMania 12. Was it 12? I think. Well, it was 12 or 13. But
Austin,
the match,
Sean and Brett, or Austin and Brett?
No, it was 13 because the last match I saw was Psycho Sid versus The Undertaker.
Yep, 13.
And I can tell you the first match I ever watched and remembered with my dad was The Undertaker versus Mankind in a Boiler Room brawl. So for that to be the first WrestleMania I ever watched with my dad meant something. To watch The Undertaker go from where he was then to now, has been a beautiful journey and heartbreaking to watch how Father Time will win every fucking match. You just can't beat that bastard.
I actually asked my kid one time, would you rather deal with Mother Nature or Father Time? And he told me, I'd rather deal with Father Time. You wait, hold up. Father Time means you're dead. I said, yes. Mother Nature, you can recover from. Father Time,
I'll say that.
Father Time runs out on everybody.
Knowing you, for the time I've known you, it's feel like I've been beat up in 41 WrestleMania.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. I'm glad that we got that countdown. We went back and flashed on that. It brings back a lot of memories of those things. You know, how many in those 40 have we, when you look at it, how many matches in there have changed the business? How many matches have brought the business down because of people involved in the matches? I mean, you had a hair versus hair match for a billionaire and a guy who's now the president.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I guess that's the beauty of professional wrestling.
It's ever evolving, and it evolves with the culture we live in.
If you truly invest in it as a fan, it can bring you up. It can take you down. But it should leave you with a smile on your face. Because one way or the other, if you're showing emotion for it, that's what they want.
That's the thing about, and I'll go back to Monty being on here. When you're a fan of something like this, it's a beautiful fucking ride. Because you find so many you find friends, me and you find people that fall in love with it, you find people who are jaded by it, you find people that legitimately, it brings them together. And
if you look at the show, we'll look at the show next week in Vegas, and we're going to talk about it next Sunday afternoon. Look at the people in the crowd. They're not all the same skin color. They're not all the same ethnicity. It's common people coming together for a common reason. And you'll sit there, if the right person wins, you're sitting there high-fiving your next door neighbor and stuff like that. It's like going to any professional sports thing in this country. And if it's the wrong person winning, most of the time, you'll be booing with that person next year. Somebody you don't know. You'll come in and, you know, that's the beauty of professional wrestling. It will bring fans of all varieties together for a common reason.
What time are we going next week?
4 o'clock, Sunday.
My time or your time?
4 o'clock Eastern time.
So 3 o'clock Central.
Yes. And the reason why?
Because we're not trying to interfere with WrestleMania.
So it doesn't.
To close this out, I'm going to do this. I'm reaching out with my hand, touching your hand. See us here next Sunday watching WrestleMania.
We will recap Saturday night. We will recap night 1, and we will preview night 2.
That being said, I am Dan. That's Gerard. Monty was here for Jacob, who was on assignment at the toilet. We are the Marks, and we will see you next week.
All of you Marks have been listening to the Marks Podcast on YouTube.
Calling all the grappling fans, from body slams to high-flying plans. Join the chat, hear the scoops. Jump in quick, don't be a stoop. We're throwing down in